They had come here today to give the Yellow Emperor enough face. They even spoke humbly, but in the end, they were given the cold shoulder and had to flee with their tails between their legs. Lin Ling, if you have the capability, hide here forever. Otherwise I'll kill you. Emperor Yao finally left after leaving behind a sentence. Lin Ling, don't think we'll let you off. This matter isn't over. Emperor Shun sneered and walked back towards the demonic eye in the sky. Scram! Lin Ling sneered too. Since they were enemies, there was no need for him to be polite. Scram! The Yellow Emperor roared too. Scram! A deafening voice reverberated throughout the entire deity mountain. It was as though Emperor Yao and the others were being chased away with a broom. This angered Emperor Yao and the others so much that their bodies trembled. In the end, they took their treasures and disappeared from the sky in shame. Seeing them disappear, an even louder voice soared into the sky. Senior Yellow Emperor, many thanks for before. Lin Ling said to the Yellow Emperor after seeing Emperor Yao and the others leave. It's nothing. The Yellow Emperor smiled and shook his head. He brought Lin Ling and the others to a nearby area to stay. That night, the place was bustling with noise. The Yellow Emperor ordered people to slaughter cows and sheep to welcome Lin Ling's arrival. Although they were all gods, they still retained the most traditional customs. Every time a festival came, they would dance and sing around the fire, praying for the heavens' protection. Yu Yu, Sheng Yi and the others were also very happy. They danced with some girls wearing beast skins. Ha ha ha. Treasure God Nanwu Fengyu and Thunder God were drinking wine with some of the senior prophets. Senior Yellow Emperor. It's because of you that they can live such a peaceful life. Lin Ling sighed as he looked at all this. He knew that the Yellow Emperor was the pillar of support for these people. They have been with me for a long time. Back then, when the heavens and earth first opened, there were wild beasts everywhere. The heavens and earth were full of disasters. Hundreds of thousands of people died every day. I couldn't bear to see them die. So I organized them into a huge tribe to fight against the natural dangers. The Yellow Emperor smiled. Thinking of those years, he also sighed in his heart. Those days were the most difficult, but also the most fulfilling and the happiest. Sir Lin Ling, I saw many people under your tomb. They grew up safely under your protection. You are also their shelter. The Yellow Emperor said again. How can my people compare to the Yellow Emperor? Lin Ling said modestly. His eyes looked into the distance. He knew that this area was the safest because of the Yellow Emperor's existence. But in the outside world, the weak were prey to the strong. The gods fought endlessly, and there were gods dying every day. In the void of Jiuzhou, everyone thought that the gods were omnipotent and could easily control the life and death of others. But they didn't know that in this place, the gods' lives were the most worthless. The gods looked glorious, but behind the scenes, they had to pay a great price. Others would never know. Back then, I was in charge of humanity, but it was still difficult to fight against the natural dangers. Later on, I traveled thousands of miles to find a master. After 100 years, I finally met my master Guangqingzi. My master taught me the way to rule the heavens. Later on, I was praised by the humans and became the Yellow Emperor. My master gave me a new lease of life. It will be difficult for me to repay this kindness in this life. Sir Lin Ling, please help me give this jug of wine to the old man. The Yellow Emperor drank a large jug of wine and sincerely said to Lin Ling, okay. Lin Ling nodded and took the jug of wine into the square prison. However, Guangqingzi seemed to know the Yellow Emperor's intentions. He accepted the wine, but didn't go out to meet the Yellow Emperor. After Lin Ling came out, he told the Yellow Emperor about Guangqingzi's intentions. The Yellow Emperor sighed inwardly, but he didn't care too much. He was already very happy that his master accepted his wine. And with his master's temperament, he didn't like to meet strangers. Lin Ling, come. Suddenly, the Yellow Emperor nodded to Lin Ling. Chapter 48:21. This sacred art is divided into several realms, corresponding to the power of the worlds will host. They are black, green, blue, yellow, red, gold, and purple. As for how to cultivate it, I don't know either, because I don't have the world's will power. Now, I will teach it to you. Hearing this, Lin Ling quickly sat down cross-legged. The Yellow Emperor pointed at Lin Ling An array of light entered Lin Ling's mind, exploding in Lin Ling's mind. This was a complicated technique that explained how to control the power of the world. However, it wasn't easy to activate this power. This was because the power of the world's will was hidden in the body. It was difficult for any divine ability to detect it. It had to be awakened. Lin Ling's soul force continued to observe the complicated technique. However, he could understand the technique, but he could not sense the world's willpower. Just like cultivation, no matter how you cultivate, you could not sense the spiritual energy in your body. Lin Ling opened his eyes, looking at the Yellow Emperor in disbelief, and told him the problem he encountered. This is a little strange, because Xiaoluan Lei Gong and Longyang could all sense their own world's willpower. The only difference is the strength of the world's willpower. Among them, Xiaoluan sensed it the fastest, Lei Gong was second, and Longyang was last. Furthermore, I also had them activate that power. It's really powerful. It's a power that surpasses the power of gods, the steps of gods, and even the most ancient divine abilities. Even if it's just a strand of power, it's still extremely powerful. That's right. The Yellow Emperor was also very confused. Could it be that I am not the world's will host? Lin Ling couldn't help but frown. Even Xiaoluan could feel that power, so why couldn't he? You returned from the 8 gods' heavenly palace, and the stone tablet recorded that you are the world's will host. That is definitely not wrong. I estimate that there are strong and weak world's will hosts. Yours is too strong, so it is even harder to sense. After all, you are the 8th world's will host. The Yellow Emperor thought for a while and explained. You see, Xiaoluan was the first to sense it, then Lei Gong, and finally Longyang. This explains everything. Senior Yellow Emperor is right. Lin Ling nodded. In my opinion, if you practice this technique every day and constantly communicate with the power of the world hidden in your body, you will definitely notice it over time. The Yellow Emperor said again. Then, he saw Lin Ling close his eyes and meditate. He did not interrupt Lin Ling and turned to leave. Lin Ling was still cultivating this cultivation method. What made him feel strange was that as he cultivated this cultivation method, he could feel a force roaming through his entire body, as if it was searching for something. However, he couldn't see the power of the world's will. Perhaps it was just as the Yellow Emperor had said. Awakening the will of the world would require a long process. Now, I've already prepared the 8-treasure acacia tree to break through to become a mid-god. However, I'm still quite lacking in the treasures needed for the breakthrough. Moreover, if I want to enter the Dao Pagoda, I'll need a large number of Dao Realm fragments. After cultivating for a while, Lin Ling sensed his own strength. In the Dao Realm, with his current strength, he estimated that he was above average. However, in the Dao Pagoda, there were too many gods. Countless gods had accumulated over several eras, and they were all above average gods in strength. Therefore, Lin Ling had to become even stronger. Although he could threaten late-stage high gods, in reality, he was relying on all kinds of trump cards. Moreover, it was only a threat. If he really wanted to kill a late-stage high god, he might not succeed. For example, Tung Wangkung was scared away by Lin Ling did not even attack him. Thinking of those trump cards, Lin Ling hurriedly cultivated the 3 ultimate universe splits. He remembered that his soul force had greatly increased, and he was close to being able to cultivate the 2nd ultimate universe splits. However, when he wanted to cultivate it, he helplessly discovered that although this ultimate universe split seemed close, it was in fact still far away. Lin Ling continued to cultivate, but in the end, he could not break through the threshold and cultivate the 2nd ultimate universe splits. Lin Ling could not help but sigh. He then checked Panga's attack. The 3 ultimate universe splits were a Mahayana Buddhist technique of soul force, and Panga's attack was a physical body divine ability. Now that Lin Ling's physical strength had greatly increased, he did not know if Panga's attack could be cultivated to the next level. Panga's attack had 6 attacks. Now that Lin Ling had cultivated split the heavens and shatter the earth, they represented 1 attack and 1 defense. The 3rd attack was absolute soul. What shocked Lin Ling was that he could cultivate Panga's physical body divine ability. As for absolute soul shock, it doubled the speed of the entire body. Doubled. It was incomparably terrifying. However, the requirement for cultivation was that one's physical body must be strong enough. Because this was the explosive speed that could be achieved by burning one's physical body. Just like split the heavens and shatter the earth, Panga's divine ability could only be used once in a short period of time. Double the speed. Lin Ling's pupils violently trembled. Speed had always been his domain of expertise. His current speed was 5 million world speed. With the addition of the Quafu sun chasing boots, it was 10 million world speed. But if he used absolute soul and doubled his speed, it would be 20 million world speed. With such speed, no mid-stage high god could catch up with him. Immediately, Lin Ling began to cultivate. Fortunately, the cultivation of Panga's attack had never been difficult. It depended on whether one's physical body had reached the standard. And Lin Ling had clearly reached the standard. After a long time, Lin Ling stood up and silently executed Panga's divine ability. First, flames appeared on his legs. They were the flames of the Quafu sun chasing boots. Then, a silver radiance appeared. Lin Ling felt as though he was stepping on 2 silver plates. Lin Ling took a step forward and disappeared on the spot. In just one step, he had passed through the Yellow Emperor's territory. His speed was incomparably fast. Next, Lin Ling tested it again and finally walked back with satisfaction. Speed was a life-saving measure. It was also a trump card to defeat one's opponent. With great speed, one would be undefeatable at some point. One could even use the smallest amount of strength to kill one's opponent. But the speed of a god had always been difficult to increase, unless one had an innate divine fetus. Right now my strongest talent is the eternal killing world. My other talents have more or less reached their limits and won't be of much help. However, the eternal killing world is enough to support me to step into the high god realm. What I lack are treasures. Lin Ling walked back and pondered for a moment. Then he immediately went to look for the Yellow Emperor. Chapter 48:22. Take my letter and give it to Taoist Yuan. He will probably give you 100,000 Dao realm fragments as a reward. Lin Ling pondered for a moment before finally nodding. But you must be careful. Emperor Yao, Emperor Shun, and the others are all searching for you. Oh right, there are also the 3 divine gates of White Mountain, Emperor Ziwei, and the others. Don't let them find you. Seeing that Lin Ling had agreed, the Yellow Emperor said again, Don't worry. Although I can't fight them, it shouldn't be difficult for me to escape. Lin Ling's speed had greatly increased, and his confidence had also increased by a lot. No mid-stage high god could catch up to him. As for late-stage high gods, unless they had divine embryos with speed, it would be difficult for them to catch up to him. What was there to be afraid of? That's good. The Yellow Emperor took out the letter and handed it to Lin Ling. Now all the gods in the vicinity of the Dao Tower were desperately searching for Dao realm fragments. Lin Ling only had to hand over the letter, but he could get 100,000 Dao realm fragments. Naturally, he wouldn't miss it. After receiving the letter, Lin Ling bid farewell to Yu Yu and the others and immediately left. He followed the direction indicated by the letter and moved forward without stopping. 10 days later, Lin Ling appeared in the west of the Dao Tower. He didn't burst out with full speed, so it took him some time. The main thing was that if he went at full speed, it would easily attract the attention of some gods. If he was discovered by Emperor Yao and the others, Lin Ling would be in a lot of trouble. In the Dao Tower, many ancient divine gates were related to Emperor Shun and Emperor Yao. Naturally, Lin Ling was much more cautious. In the west of the Dao Tower, snow and ice intersected, and the vast land was snow-white. Blizzards swept across the sky and earth from time to time, drowning everything. This wave of icy coldness had already reached the pinnacle, and it was mixed with terrifying divine energy. It was capable of causing any low-level deity to fall here, and even a mid-level deity would have to be careful. If they were to be engulfed by the blizzard head-on, even if they didn't die, they would still lose a layer of skin. The Dao Tower is so scary. Lin Ling moved forward carefully, leaving a footprint on the ground with each step. Every time a snowstorm approached, he would be able to sense it in advance and avoid the snowstorm. Moreover, from time to time, he would look back, but in the distant sky, he could still see the pure white Tao pagoda. It was like a guiding light hanging in the sky. The Tao pagoda was indeed a place that every god yearned for. It could be sensed from anywhere. Another blizzard is coming. We have to stay out of the way. Then, Lin Ling looked into the distance. It was dark, and he could hear a terrifying rumbling sound. Lin Ling hurriedly moved in another direction. He found a cliff on a hill, and hid under it to avoid the storm. These snowstorms were too powerful. When they fell on the void of the 9 continents, they could freeze the entire void of the 9 continents. Even Lin Ling's Lin Ling universe could not withstand many waves of snowstorms. Rumble! Lin Ling hid under the cliff. Above him, the sound of the sky collapsing and the earth cracking could be heard. Although Lin Ling had avoided the most dangerous storm, he was still affected by the aftershocks. His whole body was frozen, and his skin continued to crack. Of course, these injuries did not affect Lin Ling much. Therefore, Lin Ling took the opportunity to cultivate. Time passed quietly. After the blizzard had passed, sunlight appeared in the sky and fell on the snowy ground, illuminating everything. A large group walked over from afar. Their bodies were covered in light, like lanterns. It was obvious that their strength was not weak at all. After this, no one is allowed to leave the Tao sect. Now that the ancient emperor wants to harm us, we must be careful. In the vicinity of the Tao pagoda, there are countless ancient divine sections. These divine sects are also eyeing our origin returning Tao sect. Although we do not fear them, it is better to avoid trouble at this time. Remember, you must not cause trouble. An old man said to the group. This old man was a mid-stage high god. The disciples behind him were all extremely young. There were early-stage high gods and mid-stage high gods. The weakest was a mid-stage high god. The origin returning Tao sect was famous back in the era of the gods. Later on, when the calamity of the worlds will arrived, the entire sect was massacred. After reincarnating, the elders and disciples of the past all found the Tao sect and returned. We understand. The disciples nodded. Uncle Master, look. There's someone there. Wow, he dares to walk here alone. All of a sudden, a woman pointed to the bottom of the cliff. At the bottom of the cliff, the snow was melting, revealing Lin Ling's body. Therefore, they saw him at a glance. He must be very strong. After all, if he dares to walk here alone, and is not afraid of the blizzard, he can't be weak. A youth nodded and said. The old man frowned. After a closer inspection, he smiled and said, just mid-stage high god strength. A mid-stage high god is that strong? He's cultivating. He must be quite strong. I just don't know how much divine energy he has. Let me test him. Since he's here, he must be here to become a disciple. When the disciples found out that he was not a mid-stage high god, they relaxed. Then, a woman walked over with a smile. When the old man saw this, he shook his head but did not stop her. A mid-stage high god was not worthy of his attention. At this moment, Lin Ling was comprehending the technique left behind by the Yellow Emperor. However, he still could not sense the world will's power. Then, he opened his eyes and noticed the group of people in front of him. I'm sorry to disturb your cultivation. When she saw Lin Ling open his eyes, the woman immediately said, It's fine. I didn't make much progress anyway. Lin Ling shook his head, patted the snow off his body and stood up. I'm Lin Ziyu from the Origin Returning Tao sect. I saw that you were cultivating, and you weren't afraid of the snowstorm. I reckon that you're not weak. So I'm itching to learn from you. Is that okay? The woman was quite polite. Whether it was interrupting Lin Ling, or asking for advice from Lin Ling, her tone was very polite. Origin Returning Tao sect? When he heard the woman's words, Lin Ling's eyes lit up. Have you heard of the Origin Returning Tao sect? Are you really here to become a disciple? Our Origin Returning Tao sect was very famous during the Age of the Gods. At its peak, we opened 365 sects, and had more than 300 million disciples. When she saw Lin Ling's expression, the woman immediately smiled. She guessed that Lin Ling had come because of the sect's reputation. Although the times were different now, most of the gods who had died in the world will's calamity had heard of the Origin Returning Tao sect. Back then, they had failed to become a disciple. Now that they had heard of the Origin Returning Tao sect, It was not impossible for them to come again. If you want to become a disciple, then you have to spar with me. You don't have to win. You just have to use your full strength. Our martial uncle will evaluate you and see if you are suitable for our origin returning Tao sect. The woman smiled cutely, revealing 2 small canine teeth. Become a disciple. Chapter 48-23. Your Excellency, be careful. Unfortunately, Lin Ziyu thought that Lin Ling was an ordinary intermediate god. She came from the origin returning Tao sect and was stronger than an ordinary intermediate god. Therefore, she warned Lin Ling. She activated her divine power and started to test Lin Ling. However, she realized that Lin Ling was not as weak as she thought. Next, she increased her divine power and wanted to pressure Lin Ling. Unfortunately, Lin Ling was nonchalant and dealt with it casually. You have some skills. Finally, Lin Ziyu unleashed her strongest strength. Her hands flew as if she was setting up a barrier. Although it looked ordinary, she was able to unleash powerful divine power from all angles around Lin Ling and attack Lin Ling. Lin Ling's interest was piqued by such a method. After a moment of careful observation, Lin Ling did not hold back anymore. His divine power erupted and he punched out in all directions. Boom! Boom! A dull sound rang out, and the white snow around the explosion shot up into the sky. All of Lin Ziyu's tricks were broken by Lin Ling. So powerful, Lin Ziyu was secretly shocked. Not only was the man in front of her powerful divine power, but he was also very good at comprehending divine abilities. The technique she used earlier was called Divine Power Forbidden Divine Technique. It was a divine ability that the origin returning Tao sect did not pass on to others. She could use her divine power to silently kill her opponent before they noticed. Of course, this technique was only effective against gods of the same realm. Although Lin Ling's realm was the same as hers, his divine power was much stronger. Therefore, the effect was not that great. What was amazing was that Lin Ling could see through her divine power forbidden divine technique. Your Excellency, I have lost. Lin Ziyu cupped her hands and said to Lin Ling, It's fine. What was your previous technique? Lin Ling said with a smile. His soul force was powerful, so he was able to detect the hidden power of divinity in the surroundings. However, he was only able to roughly detect it. If he could control this method, although it wouldn't be considered a trump card, it would still be able to catch his enemies off guard in battle. This is a divine ability that the origin returning Tao sect does not pass on to others. Lin Ziyu smiled. She pondered for a moment and suddenly said, Your Excellency, you must be here because you want to join the origin returning Tao sect. If you join the origin returning Tao sect, you can learn the previous techniques. Moreover, your divine power is not weak. You are qualified to become a disciple of the origin returning Tao sect. Disciple? Lin Ling shook his head. Just as he was about to say something, the experts in the distance walked over. The more he looked, the more he liked Lin Ling's sect. The more he smiled and said, Your Excellency, you must have heard of the origin returning Tao sect. Your Excellency, I have our origin sect. Lin Ling stared at the old man, discovering that he had the power of a high god. Like I said, he's here because of the fame. Our origin returning Tao sect now has a powerful senior brother. Your Excellency, Your Majesty God, Xie Senior Xie Yu. The surrounding youths greeted Lin Ling respectfully. Although you joined the origin returning Tao sect later, in the world of gods, the strong are respected. They call you senior brother, so you are qualified to accept it. The old man stroked his beard and said, My name is Ling Guang. You can call me Martial Uncle Ling Guang. Lin Ling frowned. These people were too polite, making it difficult for him to speak. After all, he really was not here to become a disciple. He was here for a god called Taoist Yuan. It's fine. Our origin returning Tao sect is very easy to talk to. You don't have to be too restrained. Martial Uncle Ling Guang thought that Lin Ling was flattered. At this point, Lin Ling knew that he had no choice but to say his purpose. He shook his head and said, Senior, I'm really not here to become a disciple. Everyone was still chatting enthusiastically. When they heard Lin Ling's words, their laughter suddenly stopped. Martial Uncle Ling Guang frowned and said in a low voice, Then what are you doing here? I'm here to find a person called Taoist Yuan. I'm here to deliver a letter to him. I'm here to complete a task for someone, Lin Ling said bluntly. Not here to become a disciple. Why didn't this guy say so earlier? He made us happy for nothing. I'm calling him senior brother. So embarrassing. The faces of the disciples instantly turned cold. It was obvious that they were in a bad mood. Nonsense. If you're not here to become a disciple, why didn't you say so earlier? Martial Uncle Ling Guang's voice also became dignified. Previously, they had thought that Lin Ling was here to become a disciple. Now that they had been rejected by Lin Ling, they felt that they could not put down their faces. Moreover, their origin-returning Dao sect was a famous Dao sect during the Age of the Gods. There were countless people who wanted to join their Dao sect. Now that they had given Lin Ling a chance, Lin Ling had actually rejected them. This was also a humiliation to the origin-returning Dao sect. I wanted to say it earlier, but you didn't even have the chance to. However, it was my fault. I apologize here, Lin Ling said indifferently. I wonder where Taoist Yuan is? Where can I see him? You're just a mere junior. What qualifications do you have to see Taoist Yuan? He's an eagle in the sky, and you're a pile of shit on the ground. You don't have the qualifications to see him. Leave by yourself. Martial Uncle Ling Guang coldly snorted, and his tone became even worse. Lin Ling's voice instantly turned cold. He had already apologized for the misunderstanding earlier. Chapter 48-24. Hearing this, Ling Guang frowned. Such a thing could happen. However, he still said stubbornly, sending a middle god to deliver the letter means that the other party isn't a big deal. They're probably a smaller faction than the origin-returning Dao sect, and they're here to seek protection from us. Uncle, this is bad. This letter seems to have the Yellow Emperor's name on it. Just as he finished speaking, Lin Ziyu's voice immediately sounded, with a hint of anxiety. The group immediately stopped in their tracks. Ling Guang's body trembled as he looked at Lin Ziyu in shock and said, Lin Ziyu, are you seeing things? No. Look. Lin Ziyu quickly handed the letter to Ling Guang. Ling Guang looked at it from top to bottom, and his expression changed completely. The letter did indeed have the Yellow Emperor's signature. Furthermore, the power in the letter was very mysterious. Even he couldn't see through it. Most importantly, the letter said that after careful consideration, the Yellow Emperor had finally agreed to accept the origin-returning Dao sect into his faction. Now the origin-returning Dao sect was surrounded by enemies. All the gods were eyeing them covetously. They needed a strong backer. The Yellow Emperor was the backer they had chosen. However, when they asked the Yellow Emperor for help, the Yellow Emperor ignored them. This matter dragged on for a few years. Now the Yellow Emperor had finally agreed. The letter even said that the Yellow Emperor had sent his confidant to deliver the letter. This showed that he valued the origin-returning Dao sect. Confidant, the middle god youth from before? Heavens! Under the Yellow Emperor's tomb, there were countless capable people. Without the strength of a higher god, it was impossible to get close to the Yellow Emperor. Why did he send a middle god? Immediately hand this letter to your Uncle Yuan. Remember to tell him that this matter is extremely urgent. Uncle Ling Guang's expression changed greatly as he immediately instructed. He then looked at Lin Ziyu and the rest and said, Let's go and find that man. We've missed him. After a long time, on the snowy ground, a large number of gods glided along the ground, looking for Lin Ling everywhere. A white-haired old man wearing a Taoist robe grumbled, Junior brother Ling Guang, you can be considered as someone who has seen a lot. You actually offended the Yellow Emperor's messenger. What do you want me to say to you? It's not like you don't know that the origin-returning Dao sect is currently being attacked from all sides. If the Yellow Emperor were to step in to protect us, the nearby divine sects would not dare to bully us. But now, hearing the old man's words, Ling Guang said with a bitter face, Senior brother, I don't know either. That lad is just a mid-god. How would I know that he has such a powerful backer? Kid, can't you change your temper? The white-haired old man glared at him, scaring Ling Guang into silence. The white-haired elder continued, This is no longer the era of the gods, but the era of the gods from several eras. There are many divine sects that are more powerful than the origin-returning Tao sect. You should keep a low profile. When you find that fellow Taoist, you must apologize to him. Remember, you must call him fellow Taoist, not brat. Senior brother, I understand. Ling Guang also knew that he had gotten himself into trouble and did not dare to be arrogant anymore. Everyone split up to search. At this moment, on the other side, Lin Ling was walking alone. He was puzzled. He had wanted to hand over the letter and obtain 100,000 Tao realm fragments, but he had encountered such a situation. Now, how to obtain the Tao realm fragments was giving him a headache. Right, let's go to the four-sided prison and ask. Lin Ling pondered for a moment before entering the four-sided prison. He first found Old Man Sangui to ask, but Old Man Sangui could not help him. This was because Old Man Sangui only knew about the Tao realm and was not familiar with the Tao pagoda. Although there were many ways to obtain Tao realm fragments in the Tao realm, there were too few of them. Then, Old Man Sangui recommended Lin Ling to find Guangqingzi. Lin Ling nodded and went to the prison where Guangqingzi was. Guangqingzi seemed to have known that Lin Ling would come and was already waiting for him with a smile. Lin Ling, you must be having a headache over the Tao realm fragments. Senior Guangqingzi, you can predict the future. Hehe, it's not that I can predict the future, but if you want to grow, the best way is to obtain the Tao realm fragments or enter the Tao pagoda. However, entering the Tao pagoda, the Tao realm fragments are still indispensable. Then Senior Guangqingzi has a way? Lin Ling's eyes lit up. Senior Guangqingzi had been waiting for him for a long time. Could it be that he wanted to help him? If it was in the past, I naturally wouldn't care. However, you are the host body of the eighth will of the world. You must become stronger. Although your current strength is not bad, if you were to fight against the three divine gates of White Mountain, your strength is still too weak, let alone fighting against the Tongtian sect. One finger. Therefore, I also want to help you become stronger. Guangqingzi stroked his beard and smiled. Thank you, Senior Guangqingzi. Lin Ling was delighted and quickly bowed. Hehe, no need to call me senior. We are of the same generation. Guangqingzi waved his hand and said, Where are you now? Have you entered the Tao pagoda? Lin Ling hurriedly told him his general direction. This way. By the way, go west of the Tao pagoda. There is a shrine of ice and snow, and there is a deity inside. He has many Tao realm fragments. If you visit him and help him solve some of his cultivation problems, you will be able to obtain a large number of Tao realm fragments. I estimate that there will be at least 500,000 fragments. Maybe even more. Guangqingzi pondered. Lin Ling's eyes lit up, but then he shook his head and said, Me? Guide him? I can guide some juniors, but I don't think I am qualified to guide an ancient deity. No matter, I will teach you the method. This is cheating. Your Excellency Lin Ling, can you not say that about me? This is not cheating, this is fate. After some conversation, Lin Ling received Guangqingzi's guidance. It was a white light curtain. After Lin Ling checked it, he found that there was nothing inside, but Lin Ling guessed that if he really wanted to guide that deity, this white light would certainly be of help. Soon after, Lin Ling bade farewell and left the square prison. He wanted to find the shrine of ice. However, as soon as he came out, Lin Ling saw a large number of deities in the distance. Moreover, he saw Lin Ziyu from before. Found it under the cliff. Someone also discovered Lin Ling and immediately shouted in surprise. Lin Ling sneered and sat down cross-legged. In the distance, the white-haired old man's eyes lit up. He immediately led everyone over and landed in front of Lin Ling. He cupped his hands and saluted Lin Ling. May I ask if you are the emissary of the Yellow Emperor? I am Taoist Yuan. Greetings, fellow Taoist. Lin Ling slightly closed his eyes and remained silent. Chapter 48-25. He guessed that Taoist Yuan knew what was going on. Taoist Yuan and the others bitterly smiled. Taoist Yuan glared at Ling Guang. Ling Guang understood and cupped his hands towards Lin Ling again, saying, I was blind to not recognize Mount Tai previously. I hope you can forgive me. How would I dare to forgive this senior? I'm just a pile of shit on the ground. Your origin returning Tao sect is an eagle in the sky. I'm not worthy. Lin Ling was still sitting cross-legged and cultivating, completely unaffected. Senior brother, look. Ling Guang was about to cry. He could only helplessly look at Taoist Yuan. Taoist Yuan also had a headache. Although the man in front of him was an intermediate god, he was one of the Yellow Emperor's people. He could not afford to offend him. Fellow Taoist, look. I have 100,000 Tao realm fragments here. Taoist Yuan pondered for a bit, and handed over the fragments with a smile. Lin Ling finally opened his eyes and glanced at Taoist Yuan's Tao returning to the heavens. Then he closed his eyes again and said, "No need, I don't deserve it. I don't deserve it." Everyone was stunned. Taoist Yuan was indeed a wise old man. He immediately reacted, and took out another 100,000 fragments. He smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist, please put in a good word for us in front of the Yellow Emperor." He knew very well that if Lin Ling didn't care about the fragments, he wouldn't have opened his eyes earlier. After all, Ling Guang's continuous apologies were ignored by this man, and he continued to cultivate as he pleased. Only after taking out the fragments did he open his eyes for the first time. As for his previous refusal, the reason was very simple. He felt that the fragments were too little. Fine, we're on the same side. Let's just forget about this. Sure enough, after taking out the fragments, Lin Ling finally stood up. What a joke! Lin Ling came from so far away and was chased away. It was normal for him to want more fragments. After all, Lin Ling didn't suffer for nothing. Of course. We're on the same side from now on. Seeing Lin Ling stand up, Taoist Yuan finally felt relieved. Ling Guang and the others smiled bitterly. After all, money was more practical. Fellow Taoist, why don't you come to the Origin Returning Tao sect as a guest? Taoist Yuan then sent out an invitation. Lin Ling naturally wouldn't refuse. He still had to go to the Shrine of Ice, and didn't plan to leave this area for now. He immediately followed Taoist Yuan towards the Origin Returning Tao sect. Taoist Yuan, what happened here? Why are you asking the Yellow Emperor on? Lin Ling asked on the way. It's like this. The nearby god sects sent us an invitation. They said that their disciples would spar and use 8 million Tao realm shards as the wager. The winner would get it. We thought that we would definitely lose, so we didn't agree. Chapter 48-26. The location of the Sect of All Gods exchange was still nearby. What made Lin Ling satisfied was that it was west of the Tao Pagoda. This meant that once the exchange was over, Lin Ling could go and find the Shrine of Ice. And after everything was done, even if he didn't have enough treasures to break through to High God, he would have enough Tao realm fragments to enter the Tao Pagoda. A huge white feather warship flew across the sky. The entire body of the warship was made of the feathers of a huge white feather divine bird. This kind of spaceship could penetrate the void and reach all parts of the universe. At this moment on the white feather warship, the people of the Origin Returning Tao sect were extremely excited. They gathered together and talked excitedly. On this trip, remember not to embarrass the Origin Returning Tao sect. Ling Guang looked at the disciples and said, because this exchange is based on lifespan. Only those who have cultivated for less than 100,000 years can participate in the exchange, and their cultivation can't be at the High God realm. You are all outstanding mid-gods in the sect. Even if you can't win this exchange, you can't take the final ranking. For you, the sect took out 8 million Tao realm fragments this time. If you win, the 8 million Tao realm fragments will also be rewarded to you. Ling Guang kept saying. The disciples all puffed out their chests, their bodies shining with divine light. Lin Ziyu, your strength has increased a lot. On this trip, remember not to embarrass yourself. A handsome man looked at Lin Ziyu and said. This man looked to be about 25 or 26 years old. His name was Willow Deity, and he had the strength of a peak mid-god. Back then, he was famous in the Origin Returning Tao sect. After the great calamity of the world's will, he went through 300 lives and finally found the Origin Returning Tao sect. Therefore, in the Origin Returning Tao sect, he was the senior of the mid-gods. I understand, eldest senior brother. Lin Zi replied respectfully. On this trip, I will definitely raise the prestige of the Origin Returning Tao sect. Moreover, the other party has the Cloud Crane sect, the Entry sect, and the Jade Armor Goblin tribe. These are all old opponents from the age of all gods. I also want to meet them. The man looked into the distance and said indifferently. His words seemed calm, but they were filled with endless confidence. Senior is mighty. All the junior brothers began to flatter Willow Deity. Whether it was during the age of the gods or now, Willow Deity's prestige in their hearts was not low. However, Lin Ziyu and the others secretly shook their heads. They quietly looked at Lin Ling, who was sitting cross-legged in the corner. They guessed that Lin Ling would be the one who would decide the outcome of this exchange. Hey, where's that newbie? Could it be junior brother? Some people also noticed Lin Ling. Chapter 48-27. Remember, you were defeated by me. However, Willow Deity also said with a faint smile. Her words made Xiangshu Crown Prince smile, and he said without any embarrassment. Yes, Willow Deity of the Origin Returning Dao sect was extremely famous back then. Now that I've reincarnated, my reputation is still the same. Of course, Willow Deity said matter-of-factly. However, Xiangshu Crown Prince's eyes were cold after his faint smile. He thought to himself, today I'll pay you back for all the humiliation back then. I'll let you be proud for a while longer. While everyone was chatting enthusiastically, Lin Ling was still secretly investigating. Unfortunately, he didn't find anything. Why aren't you going to greet them? Now that martial uncles and martial uncles have gone to greet them, and so have all the other martial brothers, why are you still in a daze? A disciple of the Origin Returning Dao sect said unhappily when he saw that Lin Ling was out of place. Scram! Lin Ling didn't even look at the disciple and shouted coldly. You! The disciple didn't expect his new junior brother to be so rude. Little did he know that Lin Ling's trip this time was for the World Will's host body. This so-called Holy Gate, senior brothers, and junior brothers were actually just a fart. After everyone exchanged pleasantries, the exchange began immediately. The exchange was very simple. Every sect took out a certain amount of Tao realm fragments and distributed them according to the ratio. The winner would get the most, followed by the second place. However, the gods didn't know how to control their strength when fighting. Therefore, if they were injured or killed, they couldn't blame anyone. Of course, some gods still had the chance to be protected by Tao realm fragments, so it wasn't a big deal. Then martial platforms appeared in the valley. As if immortals were fighting, they started fighting fiercely. An ancient barrier was set up around the martial platforms to prevent the power from leaking out. Go! This spiritual master scorpion is quite strong. I remember that he was a very ordinary existence back then. After the gods reincarnated, the once powerful ones have fallen. The once weak ones have grown. Cheers and clamors came from all around. Lin Ling watched quietly. At first he was interested, but gradually he lost interest. First of all, no matter how powerful a battle between gods was, it would only cause Lin Ling to be slightly interested. Secondly, these gods had held back a little in their attacks. They didn't dare to risk their lives. Sir Lin Ling, what do you think of this exchange? Daoist Yuan asked with a smile when he saw that Lin Ling's goal wasn't on the martial stage, but looking around. Boring, Lin Ling said bluntly. He continued to pay attention to the surroundings, looking for the host body of the world will. Daoist Yuan was dumbfounded. He was speechless. What? How dare you say it's boring? A disciple at the side heard this, and his face turned red with anger. Originally, when Martial Uncle Yuan personally went to greet them, they were already very unhappy. But who would have thought that this newcomer would actually say that it was boring? Shut up. Who allowed you to speak? However, Daoist Yuan immediately reprimanded these disciples, causing them to stick out their tongues in anger. They could only glare at Lin Ling. Interesting. This guy probably has a powerful background, but he's too arrogant. I don't think he's experienced a life and death battle. Otherwise, he wouldn't dare to say that. Willow Deity also glanced at Lin Ling and shook her head in disdain. The battle in the valley was so intense, but Lin Ling said it was boring. This meant that he didn't understand these battles at all. Ignoring Lin Ling, Willow Deity's gaze fell on the various martial stages. At this moment, the other disciples of the Origin Returning Dao sect were defeated one after another. Even Lin Ziyu couldn't escape defeat. And as time passed, The winner of the exchange gradually became clear. It was actually Crown Prince Xiangshu. Even Lin Ziyu was defeated by him. I didn't expect Crown Prince Xiangshu's strength to increase so much. Willow Deity was secretly shocked. Willow Deity, why don't we have a battle? Let me see if you, a famous figure from the age of the gods, are still as powerful after reincarnating. Or will you be like the origin returning Dao sect, declining day by day? On the martial stage, Crown Prince Xiangshu looked calmly at Willow Deity. His tone wasn't as polite as before. He was looking down on the origin returning Dao sect. How dare you? The people of the origin returning Dao sect were furious. The former Crown Prince Xiangshu wouldn't dare to be so arrogant. Come on. Crown Prince Xiangshu didn't care about them at all. Instead, he waved at Willow Deity. Willow Deity's face was ashen. Without a word, she flew off the martial stage. That's more like it. You have some backbone. How about this? I'll let you make the first move. Crown Prince Xiangshu had a calm expression. He smiled at Willow Deity's arrival and waited calmly for her to attack. Willow Deity seemed to have been humiliated. She didn't speak. Her divine power erupted, and she used all kinds of techniques to attack Crown Prince Xiangshu. Rumble. Both of them were extremely famous figures. The battle was extremely intense. It could be said that the two of them were the most invincible existences amongst the mid-gods, and no mid-gods were a match for them. Crown Prince Xiangshu, how did you become so powerful? The people of the origin returning Dao sect were shocked. Crown Prince Xiangshu had already fought hundreds of rounds with Willow Deity. If it was back then, Crown Prince Xiangshu would definitely be defeated within 50 rounds. Interesting. Lin Ling was also watching their battle. He realized that their divine power had reached 70 million. Chapter 48:28. That's right. I didn't dare back then, but I dare now. What can you do to me? Go back and think about it. Xiangshu Crown Prince said disdainfully. His meaning was clear. I'm stronger than you now, so you can boast about me. Willow Deity trembled and returned to the origin Dao sect in shame. The origin returning Dao sect sighed, knowing that the 8 million Dao realm fragments were wasted. Daoist Yuan also sighed and looked at Lin Ling. He walked over and said, Your Excellency Lin Ling, are you confident in defeating Xiangshu Crown Prince? Yes. Lin Ling smiled faintly. Daoist Yuan, you want me to fight, right? Yes. Daoist Yuan nodded immediately. Wasn't this Lin Ling's purpose for coming here? Defeat him? I don't know how confident I am, but I'm very confident in killing him. Lin Ling stood up and walked out of the origin returning Dao sect. Daoist Yuan couldn't help but feel happy. With Lin Ling fighting, he should be able to suppress Xiangshu Crown Prince. Although he didn't know how strong Lin Ling was, since he knew the Yellow Emperor, he shouldn't be weak. When Lin Ling walked out, Willow Deity was walking back. He couldn't help but be surprised. Then, he looked deeply at Daoist Yuan and suddenly understood. It turned out that Daoist Yuan had a backup plan. Be careful. This Xiangshu Crown Prince's divine power seems to be on par with mine. But his divine power is a little strange. There's a strange power hidden within. Willow Deity warned. Do you think I'm you? Lin Ling didn't even look at him. His words stunned Willow Deity. At this moment, the seniors of the various sects were staring at Xiangshu Crown Prince on the stage, praising him. I didn't expect Xiangshu Crown Prince to improve so much. Back then, he definitely wasn't Willow Deity's match. His strength is probably comparable to an early-stage high god. He's a god with a lifespan of 100,000 years. Not only does he grow quickly, but his strength is also incredible. He's really not simple. The origin returning Dao sect's 800 Dao realm fragments are in our hands. Hearing the clamor around him, Xiangshu Crown Prince also felt proud. Back then, he was very ordinary. Many gods could easily defeat him, especially Willow Deity. He could only smile when facing such an expert. But now, these opponents of his had been surpassed by him, greatly surpassed. And this was his first step after reincarnating. In the future, he would enter the Dao Pagoda. I wonder who else from the various divine sects would like to exchange pointers with me. Xiangshu Crown Prince as he looked at the entire valley. Everyone had witnessed the strength of the Xiangshu Crown Prince. Without the strength of a high god, It was likely that he would be beaten up badly if he went up against him. However, at this moment, a figure lightly landed on the martial stage. However, the current Lin Ling had hidden his appearance and aura, so the people from the underworld didn't recognize him. With Lin Ling's current magical powers, it wasn't difficult for him to hide his methods. In the square prison, there were many people who had such methods. The underworld, the worlds will host. What are they doing here at the Dao Tower? Moreover, they've been here for a long time. Why didn't they fight before? What are they waiting for? Lin Ling secretly guessed. Suddenly, he thought of Xiangshu Crown Prince, and the mystery in his heart was instantly solved. Xiangshu Crown Prince, a figure from the age of gods. In terms of strength, he was no match for Willow Deity. However, after reincarnating, his strength had increased by leaps and bounds. And this was the help of the worlds will host. This meant that the worlds will host had come here to find more people like Xiangshu Crown Prince. At this moment, Lian Letian came in front of Lin Ling and sized him up. He frowned slightly. For some reason, this person in front of him gave him a sense of familiarity. However, he was very sure that he had never seen Lin Ling before. Moreover, since he was sealed, the people he knew had long disappeared. Other than the stupid dragons in the Dragon Valley, he didn't know anyone else. Your strength is not bad. Unfortunately, you're still lacking an opportunity to cross the threshold. Lian Letian put away his thoughts and said lightly. With these words, Lin Ling was even more certain of his thoughts. This guy wanted him to become the world's will. Ridiculous. He, Lin Ling, was the 8th world's will host. Among all the hosts, he was ranked 2nd. This guy wanted to take him in. Lin Ling didn't speak and continued to look at Lian Letian. Lian Letian was not surprised by Lin Ling's silence and continued. What's your name? What if I give you an opportunity? Chapter 4830. Gulong, not a bad name. Yes. Lian Letian nodded with appreciation in his eyes, as if he had taken a fancy to Lin Ling. Are you not interested in the opportunity one mentioned before? Yes. Then Lian Letian continued. Not interested, Lin Ling said bluntly. That's normal. I know that I need to show you some strength, to let you know how powerful I am. Lian Letian nodded seriously and said proudly. How about this? I'll give you a chance. I'll let you have 3 moves. If you can defeat me within 3 moves, I'll admit defeat. Yes. He suddenly looked at the ground and said. It won't be easy to defeat me in 3 moves. How about this? If you can make me take a step back within 3 moves, I'll consider it your win. How about that? Yes. He obviously wanted to show his powerful strength and make Lin Ling willingly submit to him. Lin Ling almost laughed when he heard his words. Let him. He could even kill a mid-stage high god. Was it really okay to let him defeat Lin Ling? Your strength is very ordinary. Yes. Lin Ling shook his head and said disdainfully. Lian Letian was stunned by his words. He had said that Lin Ling's strength was not bad, but Lin Ling said that his strength was ordinary. There was no modesty at all. However, he soon stopped caring. A frog at the bottom of a well did not know how powerful he was. Even if he explained too much, Lin Ling would not accept it. You're right. Now make your move. Yes. Lian Letian had the demeanor of an expert. He beckoned to Lin Ling. I don't understand. Your strength is so ordinary, and my strength is so good. You're courting death by letting me have 3 moves. Yes. However, Lin Ling still did not make his move. Make your move. It's useless to rely on your mouth. Yes. Even though Letian was displeased, he still smiled politely. The main reason was that he wanted Lin Ling to willingly submit to him. That was why he put on the demeanor of an expert and did not mind Lin Ling's rudeness. Moreover, this person was really thick-skinned. He had boasted that his strength was not bad, but he had completely forgotten that he was the one who had told Letian that his strength was not bad. Furthermore, it was just a polite remark. But this guy actually took it seriously. All right. At this time, Lin Ling finally nodded. He didn't erupt with his innate talent fusion. Instead, he pushed his physical strength and divinity to the peak. Boom. Boundless killing intent radiated from Lin Ling's body. It was the eternal killing world. The divine embryo's aura left everyone stunned. This was because this was an incomparably rare high god divine embryo. A high god divine embryo was something that not even a high god would necessarily be able to possess. In addition, the more powerful a divine embryo was, the more potential it would have in the future. Take the high god's present for example. When the second punch arrived, Lien Lation's body shook and his face turned purple. He discovered that this man called Gulong's second punch was even more powerful than the first. Most importantly, he discovered that the will of the world in his dantian had disappeared after entering Gulong's body. Bang bang bang. In a short period of time, Lien Lation retreated 3 steps. You retreated again. Lin Ling looked at him indifferently. His calm voice was like a heavy slap to Lien Lation's face. As soon as he said this, everyone's eyes were fixed on Lien Lation. Their eyes were filled with laughter. Lien Lation's face turned green and red, as if he had lost all face. Alright, I've underestimated you. Come, let's have a real battle with our strength. Lien Lation shouted angrily. He did not expect Gulong to be so strong, forcing him back with 2 punches. Shame. Shameless. Everyone laughed sarcastically. Lien Lation had been so arrogant, giving his opponent 3 moves. Now he had been slapped in the face. He was obviously not that strong, but he still had the nerve to give his opponent a move. This was shameless. Of course, while they were laughing, they were also shocked by Lien Lation's strength. Putting aside the fact that he was thick-skinned, Lien Lation indeed had some strength. After all, Gulong's 2 punches looked extremely extraordinary. They were probably the same force that killed Prince Xiangshu. Prince Xiangshu could not take it, but Lien Lation could. It seemed that even Lutian was most likely the strongest existence among the mid-level gods. Are you sure you want to have a real battle with me? Lin Ling looked at Lien Lation strangely. However, he had not expected that the young man from back then had grown to such a level. I remember now. Lin Ling looked coldly at Lien Lation and said, "Let me ask you, how did you escape?" "I won't tell you." Lien Lation suddenly gritted his teeth. "You have no right to choose when you are in my hands. You can choose not to tell me, but don't think that I can't do anything to you." Lin Ling sneered. "Hee. I am the host of the world's will. I am immortal. Even if you can kill me, after thousands of years, I will still be reincarnated." Lien Lation smiled disdainfully. "Perhaps you don't know this, but many of the 9 world wills host bodies have fallen, but they reincarnated and returned. As for me, I've never died. Reincarnation is even simpler. You may not know this, but hosts of the worlds can devour each other. If you are devoured, how will you be reincarnated?" Lin Ling lowered his head and looked at Lien Lation. As soon as he said this, Lien Lation's expression changed instantly. Of course he knew this. Could it be that you are also a host of the world's will? Lien Lation suddenly thought of something and could not help but roar. I don't want to repeat what I said a second time. How is the Dragon Valley now? Lin Ling asked again, his eyes cold. You. Surprisingly, the sun was shining brightly on the mountain peak. It wasn't cold at all. Instead, it was like spring all year round. Moreover, there were quite a few people on the mountain peak. There were dozens of them. These people all had the strength of a high-level deity. Moreover, they looked highly respected and sage-like. Of course, they were also staring at Lin Ling, their expressions full of astonishment. "Fellow cultivator, did you climb up the mountain?" Someone cupped his hands and smiled at Lin Ling. "That's right." Lin Ling's eyes flickered slightly, but then he smiled. He could sense that these people were all very strong. Most of them were late-stage high gods. Impressive, impressive. Everyone nodded courteously. They didn't underestimate Lin Ling, because being able to reach the Shrine of Ice meant that he had a certain level of strength. Furthermore, those who were able to come here all had great backgrounds. Lin Ling even saw the Yellow Emperor's men among them. He had only met them once before, so he wasn't familiar with them. Lin Ling also didn't intend to reveal his identity. "Where's this popsicle?" Someone suddenly pointed behind Lin Ling. Lien Lation was still frozen into an ice sculpture. But at this moment, He was slowly melting. A friend of mine. Lin Ling replied with a smile. Everyone blinked and smiled faintly, but they didn't expose him. Exchanging the great Tao of the universe, regardless of seniority or seniority. As long as you have the heart to pursue the great Tao, it's fine. Everyone nodded and did not object to Lin Ling's participation. Next, everyone led Lin Ling forward, chatting and laughing along the way. As for behind the crowd, Lin Ling was still dragging Lian Letian, as if he was dragging a dog. Damn Lin Ling, he doesn't treat me as a human at all. When I have the chance, I'll definitely make him regret knowing me. However, this Lin Ling was just a little kid in the void of the 9 regions back then. Why has he changed so much? Even these respected seniors know him. Among these people, one of them is the embroidered cloud dragon killer, an ancient figure from the prehistoric era. I heard that in the area of the Tao Pagoda, he doesn't join any forces, but no one dares to provoke him. Lian Letian was angry and shocked. He was angry because Lin Ling only knew how to abuse him. He was surprised because Lin Ling did not seem to be a fledgling junior. Ha ha ha, I've kept everyone waiting. After entering the Shrine of Ice, a hearty voice sounded. Then, a short old man wearing a white robe walked over with a smile to welcome them. Ice Taoist. Everyone cupped their hands and bowed to the old man. It could be seen that they had known each other for a long time. Lin Ling also stared at the old man and was secretly shocked. This was the master of the Shrine of Ice that Guang Chengzi had told him that as long as he completed his cultivation problem, he would be able to obtain a large number of Tao realm fragments. A strange feeling arose in his heart, because old San Gui had once told him that there were many deities in the Tao realm who were transformed from Tao realm wills. As long as one completed their wishes, one would be rewarded. However, no matter how he looked at the person in front of him, he did not seem to be transformed from Tao realm wills. Who are these two? After greeting everyone, Ice Taoist suddenly looked at Lin Ling and Lian Letian and asked. Lin Ling and Lian Letian were newcomers, so he naturally recognized them at a glance. This is His Excellency Lin Ling. Zhao Heshan immediately introduced them. Oh, so you are Zhao Heshan's disciple. Ice Taoist stroked his beard with a look of realization. After all, Lin Ling was only a mid-god, so he naturally thought that he was more of a junior. Ice Taoist, don't talk nonsense. How would I dare to be his master? It is my fortune to be his elder brother. Zhao Heshan was shocked. Lin Ling was a favorite of the Yellow Emperor. How would he dare to accept him as a disciple? In fact, between him and Lin Ling, it was more like he was trying to curry favor with Lin Ling. I see. Then is brother Lin Ling also here to discuss the great Tao of the universe? Ice Taoist's eyes lit up and then he smiled politely. This is not really a discussion. I am just here to learn. Lin Ling also replied politely, but he was depressed. Everyone present was a senior, so their understanding of the great Tao was naturally deeper than his. How could he join in the discussion? He could only hope that the light ball left behind by Guang Chengzi would be of some help. It's fine, it's fine. There is no order here. Anyone can express their opinion. Everyone follow me. Ice Taoist waved his hand nonchalantly and led Lin Ling and the rest forward. Then, they entered a huge ice palace. The ice palace was filled with calligraphy and paintings. The paintings were written with brush strokes. They looked simple, but each stroke carried the flavor of the great Tao of the universe. It was as if each stroke was one of the necessary laws to form the universe. However, when all the strokes were connected together, a word was formed, and at the same time, a universe was formed. Amazing! Lin Ling stared at the ice palace and found the word Xian, Yi, and Yuan. However, these words looked simple, but they were extremely profound. Lin Ling sensed something related to Lin Ling's universe. However, as for what it was, Lin Ling could not figure it out. The great Tao of the universe had always been profound. Those who could completely grasp it were already the masters of the universe, controlling the life and death of the entire universe. For example, the Tao Pagoda that Lin Ling was currently in was actually a universe. If he could understand the great Tao here, he would be able to transcend the restrictions of the laws here. Your Excellency Lin Ling, could it be that you have an opinion? Or does Your Excellency Lin Ling also know about calligraphy? Seeing Lin Ling exclaim, Ice Taoist immediately asked with a smile. Tites. S's. Est. Estiles. S. Senior Guangchengzis S. White balls meaning is hidden within. Comprehension of the great Tao may seem profound, but after thoroughly comprehending it, it's only a matter of a veil. Lin Ling's became brighter and brighter. The power of divinity appeared in his hands. He closed his eyes and began to draw in the air. The word he wrote was Xian. Xian. Xian seemed simple, but it was actually tens of millions of complex words. The first stroke, the angle, and even the strength of the stroke affected the entire universe. Lin Ling's was difficult at the beginning, but he gradually became like a fish in water. Xian, Xian seemed to contain the laws and order of the universe. The universe's great Tao may seem close, but it's like the moon in the water. You can see it, but you can't touch it. All of you have been comprehending the great Tao for millions of years. Now most of you have only touched the great Tao and sensed it. To truly reach the point of resonating with the great Tao requires tens of millions of years. That's the might of an era. At this moment, Icy Frost Taoist was still discussing with the crowd. Everyone nodded. Their brows were sometimes furrowed and sometimes relaxed. Some were enlightened, while others were still puzzled. As expected of Icy Frost Taoist, we're still at the stage of sensing the great Tao, but you've already reached the point of resonating with the great Tao. I reckon that by the time we can sense the great Tao and touch it, Icy Frost Taoist will have reached the level of creating the great Tao. At that time, you'll be able to create the universe with a wave of your hand. That's right. Moreover, the gods of today pursue combat power. In fact, they don't know that comprehension of the state of mind is the end. Even if I don't have the power of divinity, I can still create the great Tao. Any god will be changed by the great Tao. Any god will be controlled by the universe. Icy Frost Taoist, you're indeed an expert of our generation. The crowd spoke one after another, their expressions full of admiration. Hee, the resonance of the great Tao is not about time, but about comprehension. Of course, if one perseveres in comprehending it, tens of millions of years, or even several eras later, there's still a chance to comprehend the resonance of the great Tao. As for comprehending it in a short period of time, it's impossible. After all, it's a divine ability. Icy Frost Taoist stroked his beard and said politely. However, halfway through his sentence, his pupils suddenly narrowed. He felt that the air around him had suddenly resonated. Even the words around the ice palace seemed to be resonating. And this was the sign of the resonance of the great Tao. This, oh my God! The others also reacted and shifted their gazes. Only then did they realize that the resonance of the great Tao was coming from a corner of the ice sculpture. There was only one person in that corner, who was staring at the sky and writing a big word in front of him. This person was Lin Ling. At this moment, everyone was dumbfounded. Who is it? Icy Frost Taoist thought that it was Lin Ling. However, on second thought, Lin Ling had just come to comprehend the great Tao. Naturally, it couldn't be Lin Ling. He led the crowd and rushed over, looking around curiously. Who is it? Icy Frost Taoist asked as he searched. Who? What do you mean by who? Lin Ling frowned. He was curious as to why these people were so anxious. It's the person who caused the resonance of the great Tao. Zhao Hashan also said anxiously. Resonance of the great Tao? What's that? Lin Ling frowned even more. Sigh, it's hard to explain. After all, you just comprehended the great Tao. Icy Frost Taoist sighed, and couldn't be bothered to explain. He continued to ask, was there anyone else here besides you? No, it was just me, Lin Ling said. Chapter 4835. Senior Ice Frost. What is the resonance of the great Tao? What's wrong with you guys? You don't look right. Lin Ling asked with a frown. Sigh, it's a long story. How about this, I'll show you. Ice Frost Taoist shook his head and drew with his divine energy. The resonance of the great Tao is not easy to comprehend. Watch carefully. Watch carefully. Divine energy appeared in his hand, and he drew in the air. The moment the first stroke appeared, the void shook. The terrifying thing was that this stroke did not have any divine energy. It did not even have any offensive power. It only had the feeling of a law. As expected of Ice Frost Taoist, everyone present could feel the great Tao and they all cheered. In the end, the great laws of the universe were not the power of divinity. Thus, they didn't seem to have any offensive or defensive capabilities. But once the great laws of the universe took form, they would possess their own great Tao. Their might would be terrifying. Any power of divinity would be controlled by the great laws. The second stroke, Ice Frost Taoist's face turned serious as he drew again. The void shook again, as if a miniature universe had appeared. In this universe, life, death, blooming and withering quietly took shape. The third stroke, the fourth stroke, Ice Frost Taoist continued to write big words that took shape in the void. The entire void shook. When all the strokes were drawn, they combined perfectly. It was as if it could not be done a second earlier or a second later. A huge Xian word floated in the air. It looked 5 meters big, but it had already become a universe. This Xian word combined with the universe and formed a resonance. It was as if another Tao was being born. People even noticed that any divine energy was ineffective in this Xian word. This was because this small universe already had its own laws. Any divine energy in it would have to obey the laws of this small universe. Unfortunately, this small universe was still too small, so it had yet to mature. However, this resonance of the great Tao was a seed that would create a great universe in the future. This was also the reason why people studied the great Tao and gave up on divine energy. These were two different paths. At this moment, Ice Frost Taoist closed his eyes and quietly recovered. Although it was just a word, it consumed more energy than any divine ability. It made him feel a little exhausted. The other gods, on the other hand, were trying to comprehend the gigantic Xian character as they recalled the process of writing it. After all, there were many words that resonated with the great Tao in the Ice Palace. However, they were all written by Ice Snow Taoist in the past. This was the first time they had seen Ice Snow Taoist write words that resonated with the great Tao. Words passed down the great Tao. That's right. Words spread throughout the universe, including countless worlds, and the great laws of the universe. After a short moment, they opened their eyes successively and spoke with shock. All of them seemed to have attained enlightenment. Although this kind of enlightenment was very, very little, only a trace, it still made them incomparably happy. This is the resonance of the Great Path. Previously, I detected the resonance of the Great Path in this direction. That's why I asked you. Can you understand it? At this moment, Icy Taoist opened his eyes and smiled at Lin Ling. Then he shook his head and said, "You can't even sense the great Tao. I've told you so much, but I don't think you understand. Is this the resonance of the great Tao you were talking about?" Lin Ling blinked, and the power of gods appeared in his palm. Then he drew on the air. Moreover, his stroke was 10 meters long. Most importantly, compared to Icy Taoist's stroke, Lin Ling's stroke was as smooth as flowing water. It was as though the universe was formed naturally. In just a few moments, a huge Xian word that was 10 meters long floated in the sky. Rumble. The resonance of the great Tao was as though the Tao state had resonated with the word. Because these two were the same universe. The only difference was that one was big, and the other was small. As for Icy Taoist's Xian word, compared to Lin Ling's, it was like the difference between a shrimp and a shark. It was like the difference between clouds and mud. Resonance of the great Tao, forming its own rule, stabilizing the world. Icy Taoist stared at the huge Xian word and almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He couldn't help but stare at Lin Ling. He realized that Lin Ling was still blinking. Blinking your ass. Didn't you say that you have different Taos? Didn't you say that you wanted to ask for advice? This is not just asking for advice, it's giving advice. Icy Taoist felt as though he had been struck by lightning. He recalled telling Lin Ling that Lin Ling didn't even have any Tao comprehension. Even if he had the resonance of the great Tao, Lin Ling wouldn't be able to detect it. Now he felt as though he had been slapped in the face. Moreover, it was from both sides. He even thought that Lin Ling was toying with him. This word is bigger than icy Taoists and the resonance is deeper. Most importantly, didn't you see? The speed at which he wrote the word Xian is faster than icy Taoists. At this rate, he can create his own universe. Everyone was dumbfounded. It was as if they wanted to tear apart Lin Ling's face to see what secrets he was hiding. Most importantly, Lin Ling was blinking innocently, as if he had just learned it. Lin Ling's innocent look made them want to give him a good beating. Icy Taoist had been comprehending the Great Tao for 10 million years, and was barely able to achieve the resonance of the Great Tao. On the other hand, there was no need to mention them. They were at least 5 million years old, and now, they were barely able to sense the Grand Tao. Looking at Lin Ling, he had only just learned it. Comparing oneself to others is infuriating. Even Letian, who was far away, was furious. He thought that Lin Ling was too shameless. How could they know that Lin Ling had indeed just comprehended it? It was from Guangchengzi's ball of light. Lin Ling also didn't expect that the ball of light, which was originally left to guide Icy Taoist, would allow him to comprehend the resonance of the Great Tao and gain a preliminary understanding of the laws of the universe. Lin Ling's universe was a natural law. Lin Ling didn't set up any laws. But now Lin Ling had learned a preliminary understanding of the laws of the universe. His control over Lin Ling's universe was smoother, and he could control more. It seemed that Guangchengzi was not only helping him, but also giving him guidance. Guangchengzi was an ancient giant god. The laws of the universe that he knew were naturally more powerful. Your Excellency Lin Ling, didn't you say that you didn't understand the laws of the universe? Icy Taoist asked Lin Ling with a wry smile after recovering from his shock. Well, I just learned it. Lin Ling continued blinking. Blinking again. Icy Taoist nearly went berserk. He had been smiling bitterly for 50 million years. He had comprehended the laws of the universe. But the word Xian, he wrote, was only 5 meters long. But Lin Ling had just comprehended it. And the word he wrote was 10 meters long. Your Excellency Lin Ling, are you here to slap my face? Chapter 4836. If Lin Ling left or did not pay attention to a certain place, the laws of the universe would not work according to his will. It was like rain. When you stretched out your hand, your palm could stop the rain from falling. But after you left, the rain would still drip to the ground. That was the logic. That was why Lin Ling asked, how about this? Let's try using the laws of the universe. Icy Frost Taoist was also interested. Although he often sparred with others, most of the time, he was the one who gave the most pointers. Now that he had finally met a god who was on par with him, he was naturally interested. Don't worry, I won't let you spar for nothing. I'll give you 1,000,000 Tao fragments. Icy Frost Taoist laughed. Lin Ling's body shook. The reward was finally here. 1,000,000 Tao fragments would qualify him to enter the Tao Pagoda. Okay. There was no reason for Lin Ling not to agree, but he asked doubtfully, can great precepts also clash? The laws of the universe he knew were in Lin Ling's universe, where he could use the void of the entire universe to suppress his opponent. However, this was the Tao realm, which had its own laws of the universe. If Lin Ling used his own laws, he would probably be rejected by the Tao realm. Yes, we only need the laws of the two universes to clash. As long as it's not too long, the laws of the Tao realm will not restrict us. Icy Frost Taoist said with a smile. Then he floated back and reminded, Your Excellency Lin Ling, carve all your understanding of the Tao in words and attack me. Because we are all beginners of the laws of the universe, we can only use words to display the means we can use. We can't use them at will. Understood. Lin Ling nodded. No wonder the ice temple was mostly written in words. It turned out that it was the most convenient way to display the laws of the universe. Then, Lin Ling closed his eyes and displayed all his understanding of the Tao before writing it in front of him. In fact, when it came to understanding the Tao, Lin Ling's understanding of it was not shallow. However, compared to the ancient giant gods, his understanding was like the hair of an ox. But now, with Master Guangqing's comprehension, Lin Ling also gained considerable benefits, his comprehension increasing greatly. Moreover, He also added in Lin Ling's comprehension of the universe. Many of the laws in Lin Ling's universe were naturally formed. Lin Ling could control them at will, but he couldn't create them. Now Lin Ling was imitating those laws and carving them out. On the other side, Taoist Ice Snow had his eyes closed and was motionless. At this moment, all the words in the ice palace suddenly floated towards him, turning into ink and disappearing into his body. He had actually activated the resonance of the great Tao that he had written down all these years. However, this was clearly unfair. After all, this was a superimposed great cosmos law. Obviously, he intended to suppress Lin Ling and defeat Lin Ling. This brat's comprehension ability is too terrifying. He must be suppressed a little. Tell him that the true comprehension of the great Tao is something that can't be learned overnight. In terms of comprehension of the great Tao, he seems to be above me. However, I know more about the great cosmos law than him. This time, I should be able to convince him wholeheartedly. Taoist Ice Snow kept saying as he closed his eyes and wrote down the great cosmos law. This time his stroke was 50 meters long. Perhaps because of the pressure, he also performed exceptionally and wrote down the proudest great Tao resonance in the past tens of millions of years. Good. Taoist Ice Snow couldn't help but become excited when he realized this. He was secretly grateful to Lin Ling. It was because of Lin Ling's encouragement that he was able to perform exceptionally well. He was very clear about this. Then, he continued to carve the great cosmos law and looked forward to hearing the cheers of the people. However, the surroundings were very quiet. It was so quiet that no sound could be heard. This made Taoist Ice Snow think that everyone was frightened by him. He slowly opened his eyes and looked at the gods first. However, with just one look, he almost felt uneasy. This was because the gods around him didn't even look at him. What was going on? He subconsciously looked at Lin Ling. Then, he became uneasy and fearful. This was because Lin Ling had written the word Xian. It was actually 100 meters wide. He was 50 meters long, and Lin Ling was 100 meters long. F***ck, this guy did it on purpose. Isn't it only 10 meters long? Could it be that he was pretending to be weak and waiting for me to fall into his trap? Senior Taoist Ice Snow, I'm done. Please give me some pointers. At this time, Lin Ling finally opened his eyes and said solemnly. He realized that this seemingly simple word was extremely difficult to control. It was even more difficult to control than Panga's strike, and the universe's three extremes break. It was as if countless great cosmos laws were combined in the word, and could collapse and fall apart at any time. And Lin Ling could only maintain it, so that the word would not collapse. Of course, during this process, Lin Ling also felt that his soul power was increasing. He had benefited a lot. Pointers? Taoist Ice Snow almost cursed it out loud. Such a big word. Who's going to give who pointers? Come on. Then, Taoist Ice Snow shouted and activated the word in his hand. The two big words that were mixed with countless great cosmos laws slowly collided. What was scary was that after the collision, it was extremely calm. It was as if ice and snow were melting and dissipating continuously. Now it was time to see which word would dissipate faster. But everyone was blinking. One was 50 meters long, and the other was 100 meters long. It seemed that it was easy to tell which word would dissipate faster. F***ck. At this time, Taoist Ice Snow shouted in his heart. He controlled his own great cosmos laws to collide, and immediately realized how terrifying Lin Ling's great cosmos laws were. How was this great cosmos laws? This was a stable universe. Could it be that Lin Ling already had a universe? Because in Lin Ling's word, not only did it contain birth, old age, illness and death, blooming and withering, it also contained the restrictions of God's energy and various other powers. It even contained its own great cosmos laws. It was not an exaggeration to say that it had everything. Bang! But at this time, Lin Ling's huge word exploded and completely dissipated. Looking at Taoist Ice Snow's word, although it did not explode, there were not many strokes left. It was clear who was better. Everyone was in an uproar. As expected of Taoist Ice Snow, I'm convinced. Lin Ling could not help but feel ashamed. He realized that his great cosmos laws were very unstable, and could not be compared to Taoist ice snow. Convinced, Taoist ice snow almost wanted to curse. Naturally, he knew why Lin Ling had lost. There were too many Dharma laws in the universe, and Lin Ling couldn't control them all at once. However, if Lin Ling had comprehended the Great Tao for a longer period of time, controlling them would be as easy as flipping his hand. And Taoist ice snow's great cosmos laws, be it in terms of quantity or variety, were completely inferior to Lin Ling's. Chapter 4837. Ice Snow Taoist's great law of the universe is more stable. I hope Ice Snow Taoist can give me some pointers. Lin Ling said humbly. Stability was Lin Ling's biggest problem at the moment. If his Lin Ling universe was unstable, everything would be in vain. Pointers again? Ice Snow Taoist smiled bitterly. How was he supposed to give her pointers? He was too ashamed to do so. Lin Yun had instantly comprehended the great Tao resonance, and had comprehended more great law of the universe than him. If he were to give pointers, it would be shameless and a slap in the face. Sir Lin Ling, as long as you comprehend more, it won't be a big problem. After a long while, Taoist Ice Snow finally managed to squeeze out a sentence. A mouthful of blood was stuck in his chest, and he almost spat it out. I see. Thank you. Lin Ling was enlightened, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He had benefited a lot from his earlier comprehension. If he were to use it on Lin Ling universe, the entire universe would be more stable. Therefore, Lin Ling was naturally happy. Sir Lin Ling, I have another thing to ask you. I don't know if I should say it. Ice Snow Taoist said awkwardly. What is it? Ice Snow Taoist is a senior. Why can't I say it? Senior, please speak your mind. Lin Ling blinked and said politely. That's right. Can you give me some pointers? Ice Snow Taoist blushed and said shamelessly. Lin Ling was stunned and blinked again. Don't worry. I'll give you 5 million Tao state fragments as compensation. Ice Snow Taoist said quickly. Ice Snow Taoist, you are too polite. We agreed to learn from each other. Using money to talk will affect our relationship too much. Don't worry, Lin Ling, will tell you everything I know. Lin Ling waved his hand and said, by the way, I happen to need a lot of treasures for cultivation. Can I have 6 million Tao state fragments as compensation? Sure. It's a small matter. Ice Snow Taoist was stunned and immediately waved his hand with a smile. He hurried forward and humbly asked for pointers. Seeing the two of them talking, the surrounding people were dumbfounded. What happened to asking for advice? How did it become Lin Ling's guidance? Ice and Snow Taoist humbly listened. Your Excellency Lin Ling, I have 1 million Tao realm fragments here. I have some too. Then, they didn't want to miss the opportunity. They hurried to Lin Ling and humbly asked for advice. Where did this bastard get all these skills from? Even Lu Tian's face darkened when he saw the primordial giant gods surrounding Lin Ling. He could tell that these people were incomparably polite to Lin Ling. This meant that if something happened to Lin Ling, these people would definitely lend a helping hand. And this was clearly not something that even Lu Tian wanted to see. Not long ago, he had used the power of the will of the world to secretly inform the god of the underworld and asked the nearby gods of the underworld to come and help. Originally, if Lin Ling was alone, no matter how strong he was, he wouldn't be able to stop the underworld's experts. But now it was hard to say. So that's how it is. Your Excellency Lin Ling, your words have enlightened me. Yes, a problem that has troubled me for millions of years was actually solved by you with just one sentence. I'm convinced. Your Excellency Lin Ling, thank you. The gods surrounded Lin Ling, and Lin Ling was like an ancient giant god giving a sermon. His words were clear and logical, causing the gods to blush and tremble with excitement. Your Excellency Lin Ling's comprehension of the Great Tao is really like that of an ancient giant god. Ice and Snow Taoist even gave Lin Ling a thumbs up. Lin Ling secretly blushed with shame. Although he already had some comprehension of the Great Tao and had his own universe, when it came to giving advice to these people, he naturally couldn't compare. They were all old monsters who had comprehended the Great Tao for tens of millions of years. For Lin Ling to be able to give them advice, This was because of the light ball left behind by Guangchengzi. The fairy of the 9 heavens found the square prison for me. I didn't expect it to help me so much. Lin Ling secretly sighed. If not for the square prison, even if Lin Ling had the chaos divine formula, it would be 1,000 times more difficult for him to grow in the Tao realm. With the square prison, Lin Ling seemed to have a cheat, and his growth speed was 1,000 times faster than others. There are many gods in the square prison. It seems like I have to visit them more when I'm free. Oh right, there's also Monkey King. Moreover, there are 3 cells in the final prison. They are Guangchengzi, Monkey King, and I don't know who the last one is. However, to be locked in the final prison, he must have a powerful background. Lin Ling's heart was filled with anticipation. He knew that he had gained a lot from this trip. The number of Tao Realm fragments had already reached 10 million. He just didn't know if 10 million Tao Realm fragments were enough to exchange for the treasures he needed to break through. Rumble. At this moment, the entire snow mountain suddenly shook, and a large amount of snow fell from the shrine of ice. What's going on? Everyone frowned, and they were instantly displeased. Previously, under Lin Ling's guidance, they had all gained enlightenment. However, just as they were about to gain enlightenment, someone had immediately interrupted them. This kind of interruption was tantamount to having one's father killed. After all, it would be very difficult for them to return to the state they were in before. Hand over Lian Letian, or I'll flatten this place. At the same time, outside the snow mountain, an arrogant voice sounded. Young sect master, don't be afraid. The Sky Nether sect is here. Whoever dares to touch you will be killed without mercy. Sir, I don't know who you are, but I guess you don't know who we are. We are from the underworld. Now that you dare to kidnap our young sect master, you have been targeted by the underworld. Regret it, repent. I'll give you 3 breaths time to bring our young sect master out. Following that, a domineering voice sounded like thunder, blasting into the snow mountain. Ice Taoist and the rest trembled, and their eyes turned red. They had just been interrupted, but they were unwilling to give up on the enlightenment, so they entered the state of enlightenment again. However, who knew that the people outside would repeatedly seek death and disturb them, not giving them a chance to live. This is so infuriating. Ice Taoist's face was extremely ferocious. The deities were also gnashing their teeth. Seeing this scene, Lian Letian wanted to cry. Young sect master, you don't have to be afraid. I'm not afraid now, but you'll be afraid later. He had been paying attention to these deities, and found that they were all late-stage superior deities. And a few of them were even peak superior deities. The most terrifying one was Ice Taoist, who he could not see through. He was probably an existence that surpassed superior deities. If the Sky Nether sect wanted to fight against these old monsters, they would be sending themselves to their deaths. 1. 2. What made Lian Letian speechless was that outside the snow mountain, the deities from the underworld had actually counted. He was afraid that before 3 could be counted, these old monsters had already killed their way out. Kill them. As expected, the deities were furious and rushed out of the snow mountain. He and the other gods did not plan to leave. They stayed behind to comprehend the Xian character left behind by Lin Ling. Yes, I have something to do, so I have to leave. Lin Ling nodded. His current goal was to gather enough treasures to break through to the next realm, and then enter the Dao Pagoda to cultivate. Therefore, there was no need for him to stay in the Shrine of Ice for too long. Moreover, he wanted to find out the whereabouts of the Dragon Valley from Lian Letian. However, this guy was very cunning. It would not be easy to get information out of him. That's a pity. Zhao Heshang couldn't help but shake his head. Then he looked at Lin Ling and said, Your Excellency, Lin Ling rarely comes here. Why don't you rest here for a few days before leaving? He naturally didn't want Lin Ling to leave so soon. He still wanted to ask Lin Ling about many things related to the laws of Great Tao. Lin Ling pondered for a while and finally nodded. For the next 3 days, Lin Ling rested here temporarily, and at the same time, he cultivated and stabilized his realm. He discovered that he was getting closer and closer to the strength of a peak mid-level deity. Between mid-level deities and higher deities, There was actually a peak mid-level deity realm. However, this realm was rather vague, and not a realm that one had to go through. Gods with talent would break through to the next realm when they were late-stage mid-level deities. As for those with average talent, they would accumulate their foundation and finally break through at the peak mid-level deity realm. Between the two, each had its own benefits. As for Lin Ling, he currently lacked treasures to break through to the next realm. That was why he had to go through the process of reaching the peak mid-level deity realm. After all, he had 8 dantians, so it was undoubtedly more difficult to break through to the next realm. Lien Letian, are you still not going to tell me where the dragon god of the Dragon Valley and the rest went? When he was free, Lin Ling also questioned Lien Letian coldly. I really don't know. Lien Letian pretended to be innocent and said, he was the host body of the world will. So Lin Ling discovered that his soul techniques didn't have much effect on Lien Letian. Otherwise, Lin Ling would have long used tyrannical means to seize Lien Lishan's secrets. Of course, the most important thing was that Lin Ling couldn't sense his world will's power. Otherwise, he could still devour Lien Letian and obtain all his secrets. You'll tell me sooner or later. Lin Ling didn't intend to waste any more words. He turned and left. Watching Lin Ling leave, Lien Lishan's eyes were cold. He had the same idea as Lin Ling. If there was a chance, he would definitely devour Lin Ling. Both of them had their own ulterior motives. At this moment, in the origin returning Dao sect, an old man walked towards Taoist Yi Yuan with a grave expression. Sect master, what happened? Seeing the old man's serious expression, Taoist Yi Yuan felt that something big was about to happen. He asked, could it be that these bastards attacked the origin returning Dao sect again? No, now that the Yellow Emperor has appeared, and with the help of many great forces in the Dao Pagoda, the surrounding sects don't dare to act recklessly. However, the Yellow Emperor's messenger, the old man frowned, and then handed over an ancient parchment. Heavens, this is a heavenly Dao warrant. With just a glance, Taoist Yi Yuan sucked in a cold breath. The heavenly Dao warrant was not only famous in the Dao realm and Dao Pagoda, but also in the chaotic realm. It was a warrant issued jointly by countless sects to kill the other party. Whoever could complete the warrant would be rewarded with countless rewards. Generally speaking, to be able to become a heavenly Dao warrant, one had to be recognized by 500 sects. Look at the person on the wanted list. The old man sighed. Taoist Yi Yuan hurriedly took the warrant. After pouring in his divine essence, the parchment warrant emitted a bright light. A slender figure appeared in front of the two of them. It was so lifelike that one could even see all the hair and other things. Most importantly, this person was Lin Ling. Lin Ling. Taoist Yi Yuan's body trembled. That's right, it's him. The old man nodded heavily. I don't know who has such great power to issue a heavenly Dao warrant for Lin Ling. One must know that Lin Ling is one of the Yellow Emperor's people. This is a bit troublesome. We must immediately inform Lin Ling about this, and have him return to the Yellow Emperor's side. Taoist Yi Yuan's expression turned serious. Chapter 4839. TSK 300 million Dao state fragments as a reward. On top of that, the reward is 5 chaos sacred artifacts and 10 ancient treasures of the primal chaos realm. The treasures are simply too generous. After seeing the rewards, Taoist Yi Yuan's expression turned even more serious. Then, he quickly informed Lin Ling. At this moment, Lin Ling was still in the Shrine of Ice. After receiving Taoist Yi Yuan's voice transmission, Lin Ling could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Although this was the first time he had heard of a bounty, the rewards were simply too generous. Not to mention other things, 300 million Dao state fragments was enough to make people take risks. Moreover, there were also chaos sacred artifacts and various rare treasures. With so many treasures, it's probably a bounty issued by Emperor Yao and the others. It was not difficult for Lin Ling to guess who his opponents were. Emperor Yao, Emperor Shun, the 3 divine gates of White Mountain, and Emperor Ziwei. If they worked together, they would indeed have such power. As for these treasures, it was obvious that they were the treasures that the Yellow Emperor did not want. In fact, with so many treasures, Lin Ling even wanted to issue a bounty on himself. Interesting. However, Lin Ling was not afraid. Instead, he was interested. With the Heavenly Dao's bounty issued, the area around the Dao Pagoda would probably be in chaos. The gods of various eras would probably want to attack Lin Ling. Even if Lin Ling wanted to return to the Yellow Emperor's side, the process would definitely be incomparably difficult. However, Lin Ling did not plan to return. He could take advantage of the chaos to obtain more Dao state fragments. If you want to kill me, Lin Ling, then come at me. Let's see who has the strength to do so. Lin Ling was not a famous god in his era. He was not famous in the Primordial Age, Chaos Age, Primordial Age, or Age of Pantheon. Even in the current era, he was only slightly famous. However, with the Heavenly Dao's bounty issued, his name instantly soared. Leave this place. After that, Lin Ling bade farewell to the Frigid Daoist and the others and left first. Although he could hide his appearance and aura, he knew that if he encountered gods like Emperor Yao and Emperor Shun, they would definitely be able to detect something. Staying here would undoubtedly bring danger to Ice Snow Taoist and the others. Moreover, if they were wanted, staying in one place was the most dangerous. The safest way was to move around and not be surrounded in one place. Get over here. Lin Ling used his soul power to lock onto Lian Lishan's soul before disappearing into the snowstorm. At the same time, the area around the Dao Tower was in an uproar. 300 million Dao Realm fragments, TSK, a Heavenly Dao wanted order. And there are also Primal Chaos Sage items and countless other precious treasures. This Lin Ling is mine. If you can find Lin Ling, then we'll talk about it. The area around the Dao Pagoda is vast like smoke. This Lin Ling has probably received the news. If you want to find him, I'm afraid it will be harder than ascending to the heavens. I'm most afraid that he'll leave and hide in the universe he came from. Hehe, what's there to be afraid of? Back then, Prince Jinlong was on the Dao Realm's wanted list. He disappeared from the Dao Realm for 10 million years. He thought that this matter was over, but he was killed as soon as he entered the Dao Realm. Gods have nothing but time. If you have the ability, Lin Ling will continue to hide. All kinds of voices sounded around the Dao Pagoda. The area around the Dao Pagoda was very large, 4 times the size of the Dao Realm. It also had the most accumulated experts, all of whom were gods from several eras. They only had one goal, and that was the Dao Pagoda. However, the difficulty of entering the Dao Pagoda was too high, so the gods were all accumulating their capital before entering the Dao Pagoda. Lin Ling, a Heavenly Dao wanted order. In the area north of the Dao Pagoda, a man stood on a high peak, looking at the wanted order in his hand, his expression constantly changing. My lord, I'm afraid Lin Ling is in big trouble. A middle-aged man looked at the man and said, this middle-aged man was Lord Ning of the Spirit Kingdom. Originally, according to our grievances, I couldn't wait for him to die. But now he and I have a common enemy, which is Dipankara Buddha and Tongtian. So if Lin Ling dies, it will be even more disadvantageous for me. So I hope he can survive. The man looked into the distance and then said lightly, he was the great god of the Spirit Kingdom. His relationship with Lin Ling now seemed to be that of an enemy, but also like a friend. If Lin Ling died, Tongtian's world will hosts would definitely attack them. So if Lin Ling didn't die, it would be beneficial for them. On the other side, an old man was drinking wine and walking with a large group of gods. He looked at the wanted order in his hand and smiled. This Lin Ling is really crazy. Should I help him or not? He was Taoist Duobao. It's probably the idea of the 3 divine gates of White Mountain. Dipankara Buddha is finally going to attack Lin Ling. Taoist Duobao secretly guessed. He didn't want to pay attention to this matter, and let Lin Ling attract the attention of the 3 divine gates of White Mountain. However, he thought that if Lin Ling was captured, he and the great god of the Spirit Kingdom would be next. So if there was a chance, he would do his best to help Lin Ling. At least, he wouldn't let Dipankara Buddha catch Lin Ling so easily. The entire Dao Pagoda area was like a stone that stirred up 1,000 ripples. On the other side, Lin Ling walked along the ice and snow. He wore a large cloak and carried a large sword on his back, like an ascetic. Behind him, Even Lutian followed with a bitter face. Lin Ling had left a mark in his soul. It would take a lot of effort to break it. Lin Ling obviously wouldn't give him the time, so he could only follow Lin Ling. Demon City. Lin Ling's gaze landed in front of him. There was a huge ice and snow city. It was extremely majestic, but there was a demonic aura that soared into the sky. Lin Ling had learned about Ice Demon City from Zhaohe Mountain. It was also the only city in the vicinity. Many ancient fiendish demons were gathered there. After the great calamity of the world's will, the gods had fallen, and the demons couldn't escape the calamity. After reincarnating, they were incompatible with the gods, so they gathered together. And this demon city was extremely chaotic. There were great demons and great demons. Even powerful gods didn't dare to enter the city rashly. Here treasures were the most important. Killing gods and seizing treasures was a common occurrence. Roar! Lin Ling walked along the ice and snow road, and found the majestic city gate of Ice Snow City. It was a huge demon's mouth. Its cold teeth gleamed, as if it wanted to devour everyone who entered the city. Demons in 2s and 3s stepped into the demon's mouth, and disappeared from the city. These demons were violent, and loved to eat human flesh. Now that they had taken human form, their murderous aura didn't diminish at all. No, don't go. That's the land of demons. It's one of the demon city. Don't go. Behind him, Lutian kept waving his hands and saying, as if he knew how terrifying the demon city was. One of the demon city? Lin Ling asked curiously. Chapter 4840. So that's how it is. Lin Ling suddenly understood. After all, he had just arrived at the Dao Pagoda, and was not familiar with this place. He did not talk nonsense, and continued to move forward with Lien Letian. Lien Letian cursed angrily. He was only a mid-level deity, although he was very strong and could fight an early-stage superior deity. There were more than that in the city of demons. Then, the two disappeared into the huge demon mouth. After passing through the city gate, Lin Ling found himself at a three-way intersection. In front of him were 3 huge roads that stretched into the distance, as if they could cross the entire city. Around the 3-pronged road, there were a large number of restaurants and inns. Many tall and sturdy men with strange appearances were drinking wine and eating meat in large mouthfuls. Lin Ling even saw them feasting on human flesh. Many of them were holding human thighs and munching on them happily. Foul atmosphere. This was Lin Ling's biggest impression of this city. But at this moment, whether it was the demons drinking wine or the monsters eating meat, they all stopped and looked at Lin Ling with sneers. A human? Someone suddenly sneered. It's been a long time since a new human came. His flesh and blood are probably very good. Be careful. A human who dares to come to the city of demons probably has some background. Whispers could be heard as the demons stared at Lin Ling maliciously. However, Lin Ling was wearing a large black cloak, so the demons could not see Lin Ling's appearance. Hee, Your Excellency, do you want to eat an apple? Suddenly an old woman and an old man walked toward Lin Ling with a smile. They each carried a basket with apples and pears in their hands. They looked very delicious. Damn it, they beat us to it. That old fox and old jackal love to attack newcomers. The surrounding demons cursed secretly. Of course, their voices were very soft, and did not let Lin Ling and Lien Letian hear them. Even Lutian's face turned pale instantly. He naturally knew how terrifying these demons were. Although they were humans, they could turn into demons that were hundreds of meters tall in the blink of an eye. Bang! Lin Ling acted as though he didn't see the demons blocking his path. He took a step forward and a terrifying thing happened. Beside the old woman and old man, rumbling sounds could be heard as the power of divinity pressed down on them. Bang, bang, bang. The baskets in their hands fell to the ground and turned into a large number of poisonous insects, toads, and other poisonous creatures. As for the old woman and old man, their bodies exploded as well. They were killed by the power of the gods. What a powerful move. The distant fiendish demons were all shocked. Because this divine energy came without any warning. It was formless and colorless, and its methods were extremely sharp. It seems to be the work of the nearby origin returning Dao sect. A middle-aged man with sharp teeth said coldly. The demon city was west of the Dao Pagoda, so they knew about the origin returning Dao sect. Good lad, I gave you face, but you don't want it. Suddenly, a sharp voice rang out, and the fog dispersed. Then, the seemingly dead old woman appeared again. Her skin began to fall off, and a large amount of hair grew out. Furthermore, she was growing continuously. Her mouth was also becoming sharper, and her claws were also becoming incomparably sharp. Finally, she turned into a jade-faced old fox demon that was 100 meters tall. This was a fox demon that had cultivated for 80 million years. Looking at the old man, he had also turned into a huge wolf. The stench of blood on his body was extremely foul. He was the demon king of ancient Jackal Mountain during the Age of the Gods. Two huge demons blocked in front of Lin Ling and Lin Ling. They were going to harm Lin Ling. Swoosh. But at this moment, Lin Ling slashed out with his sword. The gray-robed Lin Ling also appeared silently. This was because these two demons possessed early-stage high god strength. Therefore, Lin Ling had to unleash some of his trump cards to defeat them. And his sword was surging with murderous intent, as though the universe had arrived. Plop! Two huge demon heads fell to the ground. The 100-meter-tall demon's neck kept spitting out blood, and then it collapsed. In front of the three-pronged road, there was an instant silence. Countless demons narrowed their eyes and looked at Lin Ling in disbelief. Lin Ling shook off the stench of blood on the tyrannical song sword. With a shake of his arm, the tyrannical song sword floated behind him, and the eternal killing world in the sword returned to Lin Ling's 8th dantian. Lin Ling led Lien Letian forward as though he was leading a dog, passing through the two huge corpses. What a strong murderous intent. Is he a human or a demon? In my opinion, he's a demon. His murderous intent is very strong. He's probably a grim demon. Looks like he's qualified to enter the demon city. The demons muttered secretly. If Lin Ling was a human god, they would definitely join forces to kill him. However, there were also humans who joined them. They were demons, grim demons, and other such gods. And Lin Ling's sword was filled with murderous intent, which made them think that Lin Ling was a grim demon god. Because he had killed too many people, he was not recognized by the human gods. So he came to the demon city to seek refuge. He killed an early-stage high god with a single slash. His strength is probably at the mid-stage high god level. Forget it, let's continue eating and drinking. The fiendish demons no longer bothered with Lin Ling. As for Lin Ling, he continued walking along the main street. He found a relatively clean inn and walked in. The inn was also full of demons, but they were more gentle, such as bamboo demons, rabbit demons, and so on. They glanced at Lin Ling and ignored him. Innkeeper! Lin Ling shouted after sitting down. A beautiful woman immediately came to greet Lin Ling. She first stared at Lin Ling. What was strange was that this woman's eyes were green. When one looked into her eyes, it was easy to lose oneself in them. This was the divine art of seduction. Innkeeper! Lin Ling shouted. How could this divine art of seduction affect him? Sir, what would you like to eat? The woman wanted to use the divine art to investigate Lin Ling. After being seen through by Lin Ling, she quickly smiled and said, "The best dishes." Lin Ling was a man of few words. He was very cold. Okay. The woman hurried away. Lin Ling looked around. Suddenly, his gaze fell on a wall of the inn. He saw that many things were recorded on the wall, but one of them was a wanted list. There were many wanted posters on the wanted list, including the sun, moon, and star lists, and the human, earth, and heaven lists. On the heaven leaderboard, Lin Ling saw his name. He even saw other wanted criminals on the heaven leaderboard. The heaven lists were the heavenly Dao's wanted list. There were not many people recorded on the heaven lists, less than 100. There were humans, demons, and demons. Lin Ling was ranked 18th, which meant that the reward for the wanted list on Lin Ling was the 18th place on the heaven lists. Interesting. Lin Ling smiled faintly. Sir, there are many wanted criminals in the city of demons. At this time, the beautiful woman walked back and looked at Lin Ling with a smile. Sir, you're staring at the wanted list. I guess you're also on the wanted list. However, you don't have to worry too much. The city of demons is very chaotic. It's not like the Pantheon. where everyone wants to arrest you. Chapter 48-41. Upon hearing the beautiful woman's words, Lin Ling also began to drink and eat, completely ignoring the beautiful woman. Enjoy your meal, sir. The beautiful woman did not care about anything and left after saying a few polite words. In fact, if Lin Ling had said a few polite words, the beautiful woman would have found it very strange and even suspected Lin Ling. However, Lin Ling's indifference was in line with the personality of the demon city. Lin Ling, where are you taking me? What's the use of taking me like this? I really don't know where the Dragon Valley and the Dragon God have gone. Seeing Lin Ling eating and drinking alone, Lien Le gritted his teeth and said because Lin Ling was treating him like a captive. However, Lin Ling ignored him and continued to eat and drink his own food. I must find a chance to kill him. Lien Li's eyes flashed coldly as he muttered to himself. Your Excellency, are there two people? At this time, another old man walked into the inn. This old man had white hair and wore a white robe. He had the demeanor of a transcendent being and looked extremely benevolent. Most importantly, he was actually heading straight for Lin Ling. Lin Ling glanced around and continued to eat and drink. His soul power was strong, and he could roughly see through the old man's body. It was a white-armored pangolin. I'm Elder Jia of the Flying Frost Valley. I'm here on behalf of our king. The old man did not care about Lin Ling's rudeness and continued to smile. What's the matter? Lin Ling finally spoke. He discovered that these great demons and great demons were indeed powerful. They were all early-stage higher deities with profound skills. From this point, the difference between the Tao realm and the Dao Tower could be seen. In the Tao realm, superior gods were extremely rare. Of course, there was also a possibility that the real superior gods had entered the Dao Tower. Those who stayed in the Tao realm were mostly gods who were not ambitious and were waiting for the arrival of the world will's tribulation. They were gods who were ready to die at any time. It's like this. The Flying Frost Valley would like to invite you to join us. The old man cupped his hands and smiled. Although he was learning human etiquette, when he spoke, the tail behind his robe swayed slightly, giving off an incomparably comical feeling. Join you? You don't even know who I am, and you're inviting me? Or does your Flying Frost Valley think that your king is so powerful that he doesn't fear the gods of the entire Dao Pagoda? Lin Ling took a sip of wine. Now that he was a wanted man, if he were to join the Flying Frost Valley, he would be harming the Flying Frost Valley. One had to know that even the Yellow Emperor could not guarantee that he would be safe under the Heavenly Dao's arrest warrant, let alone the Flying Frost Valley. Haha, no matter who you are, you just need to join us. You're from the Demon Slayer clan. I guess you've offended many human gods. Joining us is your only way out. The old man chuckled and explained proudly, we the Flying Frost Valley have 5 kings. They are all great demons from the age of the Pantheon. If you join us, your safety will be guaranteed. 5 kings? What kind of strength is this? Lin Ling asked with interest. 4 great lords are late-stage high gods, and 1 great lord is a mid-stage high god. The old man puffed out his chest and became even prouder. A late-stage high god was a force to be reckoned with in the Dao Pagoda. Unfortunately, this bit of strength was really not enough for Lin Ling. Although it was difficult for him to defeat a late-stage high god, the Flying Frost Valley could not protect him at all. No need. I don't plan to join the Demon Valley for the time being. Lin Ling shook his head and rejected the offer directly. Haha, Your Excellency, you've missed your chance. The old man was not angry. He smiled and said, Your Excellency may not know, but the old fox and poisonous jackal you killed earlier were great demons of the Flying Frost Valley. Now, you can only join the Flying Frost Valley. Otherwise, the Flying Frost Valley will not let you go. Hearing this, Lin Ling laughed. He was wondering why the Flying Frost Valley was so kind and tirelessly trying to recruit him. It turned out that the fox and jackal that Lin Ling had killed earlier were related to the Flying Frost Valley. Get lost. Lin Ling was too lazy to talk nonsense. He directly chased the old man away. Your Excellency, take care of yourself. The old man immediately left with a smile. After he left, there was a flurry of discussion in the inn. Although the Flying Frost Valley was not a gathering place for great demons, it was extremely impressive. This man had killed someone from the Flying Frost Valley, but the Flying Frost Valley did not pursue the matter. Instead, they gave this man a chance. However, this man had missed it. They laughed softly, as if they were gloating and watching a good show. What a strange demon! Lin Ling naturally knew what they were laughing about. He only felt disdain for it. Moreover, although the demons in the inn were imitating the refined tastes of humans, they were ultimately imitating the David's deer. Especially their gloating smiles. It was as strange as it could be. For example, one of the weasels was laughing cruelly. However, when he laughed, his human face and weasel face would change from time to time. It was extremely strange. Ignoring them, Lin Ling ate and drank to his heart's content before slowly leaving the inn. To him, the demon city was just a transit station to familiarize himself with and understand the entire Dao Pagoda. Obviously, he would not stay here for long. He's finally gone? Seeing Lin Ling leave, the beautiful woman in the inn frowned and could not help but remind him. Your Excellency, the Flying Frost Valley is an existence that cannot be underestimated among the great demons. One of their kings is in the demon city. Hearing this, Lin Ling paused in his footsteps and then continued walking. The beautiful woman was stunned. She sighed and ignored Lin Ling. Good luck. She had only said that one sentence. After Lin Ling walked out of the inn, he immediately felt the oppressive atmosphere. The inn was filled with smoke, and a large number of demons were checking him out. Their expressions were full of mockery. You're really shameless. You killed our old fox, and you still want to leave alive. On the second floor of an inn, a middle-aged man in a brown robe said coldly as he drank wine. Your Majesty, calm down. He's dead for sure. We'll use his head to drink later. That's right. These human demons are stupid. Their intelligence is not high. Beside him, two small demons flattered. Although they had transformed into humans, they still looked very ugly. Hee, using his head to drink wine. Not bad. The middle-aged man smiled and nodded. He gently placed the wine cup in his hand on the table. Bang! A soft sound rang out. Boom! However, on the street, a sudden change occurred. Terrifying demonic aura soared into the sky. From every corner of the street, huge demons stepped forward and rushed toward Lin Ling. All of them possessed early-stage high god strength, and their defenses were incomparably powerful. Their demonic aura seemed to have materialized. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws. It was terrifying. Countless eyes in the demon city immediately locked onto this street. Countless demons revealed curious expressions. Chapter 48-42. I've just had my fill. It's time for some exercise. Lin Ling muttered to himself. Under the cloak, a gray robe quietly appeared, and a terrifying aura spread out. He stretched out one hand, and the tyrannical song sword floated out from behind him. The eternal killing world in his eighth dantian surged into the sword. He held the sword and walked forward step by step. Swoosh! He slashed out with his sword, and it was as if he had slashed out a universe. The three early-stage high-level demons in front of him were instantly cut in half. Blood gushed out and dyed the street red. One must know that the demonic energy of these demons was terrifying. Ordinary divine energy could not kill them at all. This was because most of them had 200 million demonic energy in their bodies, which was comparable to the 200 million demonic energy of a god. Bang! Bang! Lin Ling's sword did not stop, and he gently slashed out. He looked as if he was casually swinging his sword, and it did not look like he was swinging his sword at all. However, this seemingly ordinary sword strike was actually so terrifying. Especially in the eyes of the demons, these swords had intertwined killing energy, and it was as if a universe had slashed them. Swoosh! After that, Lin Ling did not even look behind him. He slashed out again, and the demons behind him were also killed. Killing early-stage high-level gods was as easy as chopping vegetables. Everyone in the city gasped. Although Lin Ling had killed the old fox and the wolf, They thought that Lin Ling could only kill early-stage high-level gods and fight mid-stage high-level gods. But now there was more than just one early-stage high-level god here. Crackle! Suddenly, a green swamp appeared on the ground where Lin Ling was standing. The swamp was emitting green smoke, and it seemed to be demonic poison. The most terrifying thing was that the demonic poison came without any warning, and it was impossible to guard against it. However, Lin Ling disappeared and reappeared 100 meters away. He shook his head and said, "Is this all you've got?" As soon as he finished speaking, he threw out the sword in his hand. It shot up into the sky like an arrow, and then shot straight down. After crashing into the ground, it disappeared without a trace. After that, the depths of the ground started to shake violently. It was as if a demon had emerged from the ground. After that, a 100-meter-long toad appeared before everyone's eyes. Unfortunately, the toad had been killed with a single strike of the sword. Flying Frost Valley, you want to recruit me with this little strength? Lin Ling waved his right hand, and the tyrannical song sword flew back. Old Toad, he's a mid-stage high-level god. It was as if the entire city had exploded, and the rumbling continued without end. Slaying a mid-stage high god with a single slash, just what was the limit of this grim demon? You've watched long enough, don't you have anything to say? Suddenly, Lin Ling stopped in his tracks and looked at a restaurant in the distance. When he looked over, countless gazes from the entire city locked onto the restaurant. They had roughly guessed that there was definitely an even more powerful great demon hiding in the restaurant in the Flying Frost Valley. Perhaps it was the king of the Flying Frost Valley. At this moment, the demons in the restaurant, who were drinking casually, had stopped moving. The middle-aged man in the brown robe was still holding the wine cup, but his hands were shaking. After witnessing Lin Ling kill the great demon of the Flying Frost Valley, he knew how terrifying Lin Ling's strength was. Swoosh! At this moment a sword shot over. Lin Ling had made his move. Block it! The middle-aged man in the brown robe threw the wine cup in his hand and spat out a mouthful of demonic aura. The surrounding demons blocked in front of him. However, Lin Ling's sword was extremely sharp. It shot through the window and pierced through the demons. Finally, the sword pierced through the middle-aged man, causing him to point forward with a look of disbelief. Finally, he slowly fell to the ground. The Fishworm King is also dead. The Flying Frost Valley only had 5 kings, and now one of them is dead. Slaying demons' sword is too powerful. The demons watching from afar were all pale and trembling. Most importantly, killing the king of the Flying Frost Valley in one strike was too terrifying. Interesting trying to escape? However, Lin Ling smiled faintly. He stretched out his right hand and flicked his finger. The tyrannical song sword flew out from afar and pierced through the ground. Not long after, a painful roar was heard. Next, everyone saw the ground explode, and a snake-like demon rushed out. However, its body was pierced through by a sword, and a large amount of smelly blood spurted out. Of course, the snake-like demon was not actually a snake, but an earthworm. No, how did you find me? After being pierced by the tyrannical song sword, the earthworm let out a loud roar. With your intelligence, it's hard for me to explain it to you. Lin Ling turned to leave, but the tyrannical song sword was cutting back and forth, cutting the huge earthworm into pieces. Then the tyrannical song sword flew back and hovered around Lin Ling, protecting him. This time, no one dared to stop Lin Ling. Is he really a mid-level deity? Why is he so strong? I think he's really a mid-level deity, but his sword is very sharp. It should be a Chaos Divine weapon. It's at least a 5th-grade Chaos Divine weapon. After Lin Ling gradually disappeared, the fiendish demon city was abuzz with discussion. On the other side, Lin Ling had already left with Lian Letian towards another city gate. However, not long after leaving the fiendish demon city, Lin Ling suddenly stopped in his tracks and looked at the loot in his hands. Previously, he had killed many demons, and at the same time, obtained their celestial Tao restoration tablets. These demons did not have the protection of the Tao state, so he could easily obtain the celestial Tao restoration tablets. The Tao state fragments inside belonged to Lin Ling. Lin Ling kept the Tao state fragments in his celestial Tao restoration tablet, and threw away the demon's celestial Tao restoration tablets. He knew that it would not be long before these celestial Tao restoration tablets disappeared. Sir, do you have a problem with me? After keeping the celestial Tao restoration tablets, Lin Ling suddenly looked in a direction and asked. In the mountains, a mysterious man with a huge saber on his back walked out with a smile. Sir, you are very strong. You have the strength of a mid-level deity, but you even killed a mid-level high god. Among the human gods, there are not many who have the strength to challenge those of a higher level. Who are you? Lin Ling looked at the man and realized that he had the strength of a mid-level high god. However, this man's saber was extraordinary. Thousand Blade One. The man smiled and took off his cloak, revealing a bearded face. He looked to be in his 40s, and he gave off the feeling that he was an honest man. However, Lin Ling's eyes flashed and he said with a smile, Underground wanted list Thousand Blade One. Upon hearing this, the mysterious man's expression changed. You are not a good person. You are a demon god among demons. You are wanted by the gods, so you hid in the fiendish demon land. Lin Ling said again. The mysterious man's eyes narrowed. He did not expect Lin Ling to be so familiar with him. He did not know that Lin Ling was familiar with him, because he had seen the various wanted lists. You are looking for me? Lin Ling said indifferently. Chapter 48-43. You're Lin Ling from the Heavenly Tao Wanted List. Seeing that Lin Ling had seen through his origins, Wan Daoyi no longer hid his purpose. How do you know? Lin Ling's eyes flashed. You don't need to know that. I only know that the reward for killing you is incomparably generous. A large blade appeared in Wan Daoyi's hand, and with a buzz, the power of divinity burst out like the universe. It was very strong. His power of divinity had probably reached as much as 500 million. A wanted criminal killing a wanted criminal? Don't you think it's funny? Lin Ling stared at Wan Daoyi's blade and laughed. Hee, I can enter the demon city. This means that I'm not a pedantic person. Wan Daoyi shook his head. He only attacked for the Tao realm fragment. He said coldly. After killing you, I'll have the capital to enter the Tao pagoda. His eyes turned red. It was a blood-red color, and his pupils could not be seen. It was terrifying. You're so sure that you can kill me? Lin Ling also knew that Wan Daoyi was not an ordinary mid-stage high god. He was stronger than those he had encountered before, perhaps even twice as strong. You're just a mid-stage high god. No matter how powerful you are, there's a limit. Take my blade. As Wan Daoyi spoke, he had already attacked. With a horizontal slash, the sky of the Tao pagoda was cut open, and a void appeared. However, at the critical moment, Lin Ling activated the Kwafu Sunchaser boots and disappeared on the spot, avoiding Wan Daoyi's fierce slash. Then, Lin Ling floated in the air, looking down at Wan Daoyi with a cold expression. He still did not understand how Wan Daoyi recognized him. Although he knew that he would not be able to escape the day of being hunted down, he did not expect that day to come so soon. Let's see how long you can hide. Wan Daoyi raised his head and pointed the blade in his hand at Lin Ling. Why should I hide? Lin Ling did not want to waste too much time. He felt that this was not a good place to stay. Universe 3 Extreme Break. He used his trump card and attacked Wan Daoyi from the sky. The terrifying soul power locked Wan Daoyi's soul into the great universe and killed him. Wan Daoyi's eyes narrowed. What kind of technique was this? He still wanted to make a move, and even wanted to say something. But he was already killed by Lin Ling's cosmic ray. After his trip to the Shrine of Ice, Lin Ling's soul energy had once again improved. Now the might of his 3 extremes of universe had also increased by a notch. You overestimate yourself. Lin Ling shouted coldly as he floated down to the ground and took away Wan Daoyi's Tao returns to heaven. Subsequently, Lin Ling discovered that Wan Daoyi's Tao regression celestial realm didn't seem to disappear. This meant that Wan Daoyi still had a chance to be protected by the Tao realm. Unfortunately, Wan Daoyi was killed by soul force, and the Tao realm couldn't detect the killing intent, so it didn't protect Wan Daoyi. Wu Ting once said that if taken away by the Tao realm's protection, the Tao regression celestial realm wouldn't disappear. But it would take a certain amount of time. If the person who came didn't come to take back the Tao regression celestial realm, the Tao regression celestial realm would disappear sooner or later. Now that Wan Daoyi is dead, the Tao regression celestial realm won't be able to escape the fate of disappearing. Lin Ling wasn't in a hurry. He took Wan Daoyi's Tao regression celestial realm and immediately left. However, not long after he left, a huge mouth suddenly appeared on the ground. Upon closer inspection, it was a mouth formed by 2 leaves. It suddenly closed and swallowed Lin Ling. These leaves were too strange. They appeared without any warning. Even with Lin Ling's soul power, he couldn't detect them unless the leaves merged. Haha, Heavenly Tao arrest order Lin Ling, you've been caught by me. Quickly accept your death. No one can break my supreme world spiritual realm. Lin Ling, who was swallowed, felt that he had entered a pitch-black world. At the same time, a sinister laughter sounded in his ears. Lin Ling instantly knew that the one swallowing him was a great demon, and an extremely powerful one at that. Whoosh! At the same time, water began to drip from the surroundings. The corrosive power was very strong, as if it was going to digest Lin Ling. And within this corrosive water, Lin Ling sensed a terrifying god energy. It seemed that the things that the leaves swallowed relied on the god energy to corrode their prey. Tsk tisk, 300 million Tao realm fragments are mine just like that. Ha ha ha. At the same time, a triumphant voice sounded. It was incomparably happy. It's too early for you to be happy. Lin Ling knew that there was no time to lose. He had to leave this place immediately. Otherwise, no matter how strong his combat strength was, it would be greatly reduced. Panga strike shatter the earth. Lin Ling activated the god energy's invincible technique. Then, like a giant pangu, he attacked the leaves crazily and blasted them apart. And the corrosive water that fell on him seemed to be ineffective at this moment. How is this possible? The leaves also screamed in horror. They could not believe it. And at this moment, outside the leaves, Lien Letian stared at the huge leaves in front of him with an excited smile. If Lin Ling died in the mouth of the great demon, then he would be able to obtain Lin Ling's will of the world. After all, the great demon could not devour the will of the world. Hurry, hurry. Lien Letian was looking forward to it. Boom. But at this moment, the leaves in front of him shook violently. Then a fist broke the surface of the leaves, followed by more and more fists. Finally, the leaves were also blasted apart by countless huge fists. A figure rushed out and stomped down from the sky. Boom. The great demon from before was stomped to death, deader than dead. The person who rushed out was Lin Ling. He had collected the great demon's Tao regression celestial rank. His expression was extremely serious. The massacre was finally here, and it was faster than he had imagined. He had to leave this place immediately. Lin Ling's eyes swept across and suddenly landed on Lien Letian. After pondering for a moment, he finally understood. One had to know that he had been hiding his aura and appearance. Unless it was someone who was purposely coming for him, Lin Ling, no one would be able to detect him. But now, with 2 waves of enemies, they all knew that he, Lin Ling, was purposely here. All of this did not make sense. The only explanation was that someone was telling them. Now the only person who knew of Lin Ling's whereabouts was Lien Letian. Lien Letian. Lin Ling growled. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. This Lien Letian was ultimately a bomb. Lin Ling, you, what are you trying to do? Being stared at by Lin Ling, Lien Letian was clearly a little flustered. Don't think that I can't do anything to you just because you are the will of the world. Lin Ling's mind kept thinking, trying to find a way to devour Lien Letian. Lien Letian was the will of the world. Even if he died, he could still be reincarnated. Unless he could devour him and make him die completely. But with Lin Ling's current knowledge, he had yet to find a way to devour him. Right, why not ask Senior Guangqingzi? Lin Ling's eyes lit up. Then, he looked into the distance and knew that another enemy was coming. Chapter 48-44. Lien Lishan's body trembled as he panicked. He didn't know why, but the way Lin Ling looked at him made him feel that Lin Ling had a way to deal with him. Heavenly Tao arrest order. Lin Ling is here. He couldn't help but shout, wanting more enemies to attack Lin Ling. This also aroused Lin Ling's anger. However, the most important thing now was to leave immediately and find a quiet place to deal with Lien Letian. Go ahead and shout. If they can't kill me, Lien Letian, you're dead meat. Lin Ling said, full of killing intent. This made Lien Letian even more flustered. Whoosh! Lin Ling activated the Quafu Sun chasing boots and ran along the ground at an incomparably fast speed. However, he didn't dare to fly too high because he would become a thorn in the side. Although he didn't see anyone chasing after him, Lin Ling could feel that someone was coming for him. The reward of a heavenly Dao arrest order was too generous. No one would ignore it. Sure enough, after running for 3 incense sticks, the killing intent finally arrived. Suddenly, a pitch-black light appeared in front of him. It was like a huge wall, blocking Lin Ling's path. Something's not right. Lin Ling was still holding Lien Lishan's hand. His eyes stared ahead. There was a huge black wall in front of them that was emitting dense smoke. Lin Ling's soul force quietly swept over it. He couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. This wall was too big. It was actually bigger than any of the prefectures in the 9 prefectures. When he looked up again, the terrifying thing was that this wall reached straight into the clouds and into the Grand Mist aura. Most importantly, the Grand Mist aura didn't seem to affect this wall. The Grand Mist aura was the most mysterious existence in the Dao realm. No god could break through it. Now that there was someone who didn't fear the Grand Mist aura, it was no wonder that Lin Ling was shocked. Rumble. At this moment, there was finally a rumbling sound behind them. It seemed like a large number of gods and demons were chasing after them. The only choice left for Lin Ling was to break through this wall as soon as possible and escape. Rumble. Lin Ling slashed out with his sword. The terrifying power of divinity slammed into the black wall, creating a rumbling sound. However, the sword that had always been invincible only managed to create a small gap in the black wall. Moreover, black smoke came out of the gap and quickly repaired it. What a strong defense! Lin Ling's pupils constricted. His innate talent fusion, gray robe appeared, and he slashed out another slash. This sword strike was much more powerful. It cut 100 meters into the black wall. But in the blink of an eye, black mist filled the gap and intertwined with each other. The black wall was restored to its original state. What is this? Lin Ling's expression became more and more. Looking behind him, he realized that a powerful aura was descending. He could even see the enemy coming. Above the heavens ants, and demonic chi with his SD. In midair, a white light flickered and flew over with the speed of 20 million worlds. This was a divine bird, and it was an extremely fast divine bird. Bang! 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 On the other side, the green-furred lion broke through countless mountains, roaring at the sky as it arrived. As for the southeast, sand and stones were flying everywhere. In the rolling sandstorm, a pair of eyes faintly appeared and stared at Lin Ling, full of murderous intent. Lin Ling could sense from the aura that these powerful enemies were late-stage high gods. He couldn't win. Lin Ling had already used the universe's 3 extremes break. With only the eternal killing world and Panga's attack, he was no match for these enemies. Lin Ling, how dare you kill my Flying Frost Valley's people? A low voice finally sounded. What shocked Lin Ling was that the voice came from in front of him. The black wall finally moved. Amidst the endless black clouds, a pair of cold eyes hung in the air like the moon. Very evil, very strange. The eyes stared at Lin Ling, and it was huge. Lin Ling's pupils trembled violently. Only then did he realize that it was a head. And there were eyes on the head. The scariest thing was that Lin Ling realized that it was a huge demon turtle, and the thing in front of him was the body of the demon turtle. However, the body of the demon turtle was too big, as though it was a universe of its own. Flying Frost Valley? Lin Ling's expression changed. He had completely guessed the origin of these demons. They were probably the 4 kings of the Flying Frost Valley. However, their strength was indeed terrifying. Most importantly, they were just ordinary kings in the demon city. If they were really powerful demons, wouldn't they be even more powerful? You won't be able to escape after killing my Flying Frost Valley's people. However, I didn't expect you to be a wanted criminal of the heavenly Tao. From behind, a loud voice sounded like a sound wave, causing Lin Ling's eardrums to hurt. I have to leave this place immediately. Lin Ling knew that there was no time to lose. If he was really surrounded here, he would definitely die. Lin Ling, ha ha ha. He looked at Lien Letian again. At this moment he was overjoyed, as though he saw Lin Ling unable to escape. He roared at the demons. I found this Lin Ling for you. As long as you let me go, everything of Lin Ling will belong to you. Indeed, Lien Letian had informed them to come. This made Lin Ling want nothing more than to kill Lien Letian with his sword. However, Lin Ling endured it. He knew that Lien Letian was eager to kill him and reincarnate, but Lin Ling wouldn't let him off so easily. Panga strike, sky-splitting slash. Lin Ling put away the tyrannical song sword and unleashed another killer move. He raised his hand high and suddenly slashed forward. A mere human dares to go against our great king? You're courting death. Seeing that Lin Ling was about to attack, the great kings were full of disdain. They didn't think that Lin Ling could cause a stir among the late-stage high-level great gods. Rumble. However, when Lin Ling slashed down, the huge black flag in front of him was cut open, revealing a 1-meter-wide path that went straight into the distance. You cut me open. The huge demonic turtle let out a shocked voice in disbelief. The few great demons behind it also stopped in their tracks, their faces full of shock. However, Lin Ling noticed that even though he had slashed the demonic turtle in half, the demonic turtle wasn't dead at all. At most, it had suffered some minor injuries. Moreover, the path that had been slashed open was filled with black clouds, and it was rapidly recovering. Panga strike, spiritual extinction. Lin Ling shouted angrily in his heart. His body disappeared from the spot as though he had teleported and shot into the black wall in front of him. At this moment, the black wall was rapidly fusing. Lin Ling's move was obviously extremely dangerous. If he couldn't escape before the black wall completely fused, he would be caught in the middle of the black wall and completely captured by the great demons. Lin Ling also knew this. Chapter 48-45. How did his speed increase so much all of a sudden? King Xian, stop him quickly. Seeing Lin Ling suddenly disappear, the great demons behind him all roared loudly. They had never imagined that a mere mid-level deity human would actually possess so many powerful techniques. He, entering my body, he's courting death. The giant demon turtle also spoke in human language and said disdainfully. However, his voice soon became panicked. Oh no, he escaped. As soon as he said this, the world fell silent. Under the joint efforts of the Flying Frost Valley's great kings, the human god had actually escaped. Chase. The great demons were furious. Their bodies became huge, and they galloped on the ground like giants. As for the gigantic demon turtle, it shrunk and opened up a path for them. After the great demons passed by it, it chased after Lin Ling. However, when they chased after Lin Ling, they suddenly realized that Lin Ling had completely disappeared. Whoosh! In the sky, a white light pierced through the void. After disappearing for a moment, it returned and turned into a middle-aged man in a white robe. The middle-aged man's nose was very sharp, like an eagle's beak. He shouted coldly, "Damn it, he escaped. King Yan, with your speed, you can't catch up with him?" The other great kings were shocked. His speed is estimated to have reached 20 million world speed. The middle-aged man in the white robe said angrily. As soon as he said this, the great kings all gasped. 20 million world speed was difficult even for great demons like them. Only King Yan, who was the original body of the bloody killing swallow, could have such speed. However, King Yan only had 20 million world speed and did not surpass Lin Ling. Therefore, he could not catch up with Lin Ling. And now a mid-level god also possessed this kind of speed? 300 million Tao realm fragments. He escaped just like that. An old man walked over angrily with a huge turtle shell on his back. It was the demon turtle. At this moment, Lin Ling kept rushing forward at an extremely fast speed. He looked back and suddenly realized that the Tao pagoda hanging in the sky was getting smaller and smaller. This meant that he was being chased in another direction. But now he had no choice. Behind him, Lien Letian was still being held back by Lin Ling's soul chains. This made Lin Ling nod inwardly. He was most afraid that Lien Letian would escape. After a long time, Lin Ling sensed that the power of Penga's attack was weakening, and his speed finally slowed down. However, Lin Ling was still cautious. His trump cards were very powerful, but they could only be used once. If he encountered a powerful enemy now, he would definitely be in trouble. Lin Ling, is it? You're really strong. You actually hit here. I had to activate my divine ability, the staircase of the world, to catch up to you. But at this moment a cold voice sounded. Then a sword slashed over. Divine sword surged, slaying demons. This sword came without any warning, and was incomparably fast, causing Lin Ling's expression to greatly change. He anxiously tried to block it, but was immediately injured by the powerful divine power. Clang! After the tyrannical song sword collided with the sword, Lin Ling's figure rapidly retreated. Looking at his shoulder, it was now covered in blood. He looked into the distance, and saw a man holding a sword on a mountain peak in the distance. He stood there calmly. His sword caused the sky to change color. Middle stage high god, but he's very strong. His divine power has reached 600 million. Lin Ling's expression was extremely solemn. He had just escaped from the great demon, but he did not expect to be caught up again. Most importantly, this person seemed to be a human god. Moreover, the opponent's speed was too fast. He could actually catch up to Lin Ling. Right, he mentioned the staircase of the world. Could it be the staircase of the gods? Lin Ling thought to himself. Then he said coldly, "Who are you?" Whoosh! On the mountain peak, the man did not bother to say anything. He slashed down with his sword. Rumble! Under this sword, a large number of mountains were slashed and floated in the sky like light feathers. It was very beautiful. Then, the invisible divine power merged into the sword and slashed at Lin Ling. Merge! Lin Ling shouted in a low voice. A gray robe appeared, and his divine power and physical strength instantly skyrocketed, reaching 200 million. The tyrannical song sword blocked in front of him, madly blocking the fatal sword. Rumble! Lin Ling was as if he was blocking the impact of a storm. His figure was constantly knocked back. But in the end, this terrifying horizontal slash was blocked by Lin Ling. Bang! 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 The sword passed around Lin Ling, and all the mountains behind him were flattened. Countless mountains floated in the sky like feathers. Looking from afar, the scene was extremely spectacular. This person is very strong, and he's also a swordsman. If I can't defeat him, I'll be in even more trouble. Now there are definitely many people who want to kill me, and they're all on the way. I have to speed up. Lin Ling's eyes flickered, and there were billowing flames spewing out of them. Very good strength. To be able to block my sword with the realm of a mid-stage mid-god. You're considered very amazing among the gods. On the mountain peak, the man said indifferently. Since you blocked my sword, I'll tell you my name, Mount Shu Sword God. Mount Shu was an extremely famous sword faction in ancient times. They slayed demons and ruled the world with their swords. They were extremely powerful. Once, Lin Ling also knew a god called Mount Shu Sword Immortal. This person came from Mount Shu. However, there were many swordsmen in Mount Shu, and Mount Shu Sword Immortal was only one of them. Most importantly, the god called Mount Shu Sword God in front of him was even stronger. How did you detect me? Lin Ling asked. Someone told me and roughly told me your whereabouts. My god stairs can cross a world. I noticed your figure at the distant Dao Tower. I stepped into the void and arrived here. The man said indifferently. Lin Ling nodded. So it was the god's stairs. However, this person's god's stairs was really terrifying. It could cross realms. This meant that if this person used the god's stairs, he could go to the chaotic realm and the void of the 9 regions. My god's stairs is not as powerful as you think. It has no attack power, and there is a limit to the number of times it can be used. Moreover, I can't go to realms that I haven't been to, such as the Dao Tower. As if guessing Lin Ling's thoughts, the man said again. No wonder he didn't enter the Dao Tower. It turned out that he couldn't use the god's stairs to enter places that he hadn't been to before. However, Lin Ling still felt that this person's god stares were too heaven-defying. Because with this kind of god stares, if he encountered a powerful enemy, he could escape from the dangerous place in one step. Well, I've said what needs to be said. Now die. The man jumped down from the sky. With a sword in hand, he cut through the thorns and shot towards Lin Ling. Rumble. This sword was incomparably terrifying. It was like a shooting star. The divine power had reached a terrifying level. Chapter 48-46. Lin Ling's eternal killing world was the same as Panga's strike. It even had an advantage that Panga's strike did not have, which was that there was no limit to the number of times it could be used. Moreover, it had accumulated tens of thousands of centuries of killing. It was terrifying. You overestimate yourself. Seeing that Lin Ling actually took the initiative to attack, the man immediately laughed disdainfully. But at this moment, he realized that a powerful universe of killing was coming at him, as if it was going to drown him. He had seen the ocean of killing, the river of killing, and even the most powerful heaven and earth of killing, but this was the first time he had seen the universe of killing. The killing intent of the entire universe was naturally stronger than the ocean, the river, and even the heaven and earth. Impossible. How could you have accumulated so many kills? The Mount Shu sword god roared in disbelief. The sword in his hand was also trembling, as if he did not believe in his own sword and Tao. In this collapsing river, once he had doubts, his will collapsed. The terrifying killing affected him, making him almost lose his mind. Swoosh. At the same time Lin Ling's sword arrived. With a clang, it was blocked by the Mount Shu sword god's sword. In terms of strength, Lin Ling was no match for the Mount Shu sword god. His body flew backward and smashed into the ground. However, the Mount Shu sword god in the sky was not any better. Blood dripped from the hand holding the sword. Obviously, he was also injured by Lin Ling's sword. Of course, the most important thing was that he was affected by Lin Ling's killing, which caused his combat strength to weaken by as much as 60%. Why do you have so much killing? The Mount Shu sword god's eyes were red as he stared at Lin Ling. If you don't kill, these killings won't affect you. On the ground, Lin Ling looked at him indifferently, then ran in another direction. The Mount Shu sword god wanted to chase after Lin Ling, but in the end, he held back because he was still affected by the killings. His Tao heart was unstable, and he almost lost himself. If he didn't kill, the eternal killing world wouldn't affect him. Unfortunately, as the sword god, how could he not kill? Bang! The Mount Shu sword god fell from the sky, and then sat cross-legged on the ground, resisting the killing from the illusion with all his strength. It was as if he had entered the world of slaughter that Lin Ling had once entered. His soul was in turmoil. He never thought that he would be defeated. He pursued the supreme Mount Shu sword mantra, but he forgot to improve his state of mind. This was his biggest flaw. Although he managed to escape, at least he gave me some pointers. He clearly told me where my flaws are. After the Mount Shu sword divine weapon pondered for a moment, it was no longer angry. Instead, it was incomparably happy. As a swordsman, what he wanted to know the most was where his flaws were. He originally thought that he was no longer afraid of slaughter, but now he realized that what he wasn't afraid of was small massacres. He was still too inexperienced when it came to the real universe of slaughter. This Mount Shu sword god is so powerful. At this moment, Lin Ling was running into the distance. Blood was dripping from his arms and shoulders. He had clearly suffered serious injuries after clashing with the Mount Shu sword god. In this short period of time, he had fought several gods and demons. This also gave Lin Ling a deep understanding of the Tao Pagoda. His current strength was much weaker in the vicinity of the Tao Pagoda. Not to mention the Tao Pagoda, that was the focus of everyone's attention. In the Tao Pagoda, he was probably an ancient god who had founded a sect. Behind Lin Ling, even Lu Tian's expression was constantly changing. After witnessing Lin Ling escape danger again and again, he realized how terrifying Lin Ling's strength was. He had killed 2 old foxes and an old jackal, killed a great demon of the Flying Frost Valley, escaped from the mouth of a strange tree demon, and even killed it. Moreover, he He had escaped from the hands of the 4 great demons of the Flying Frost Valley, fought the Mount Shu Sword God, and retreated unscathed. Was this still a mid-level god? He thought of the kid he had seen in the Dragon Valley back then, and then thought of the invincible Lin Ling now, and his heart instantly turned cold. It was said that the host body of the world's will was incomparably powerful, and its growth speed surpassed that of tens of millions of gods. However, in front of Lin Ling, the host body of the world's will, he really couldn't compare to Lutian. Could it be that Lin Ling was really the host body of the 8th world's will? Would he inevitably change the era in the future? I can't let him live. He is still weak now, and I can still devour him. If I wait until he is strong in the future, I will definitely be devoured. I have to make the first move. A huge pressure rose in Lutian's heart. Of course, he had to kill Lin Ling. Suddenly, Lutian's eyes lit up, and the corner of his mouth revealed a sneer. At this moment, Lin Ling was still moving forward, constantly recovering his body. Fortunately, his physical body was strong, and he had 8 dantians. In a short period of time, he had recovered more than half. However, it would take a certain amount of time for the various trump cards to recover, at least half a day. Suddenly, Lin Ling's pupils trembled violently, and then he couldn't help but curse. That was because he discovered that the world in front of him had changed. Although the world in front of him was still green with mountains and rivers, blue sky and white clouds, Lin Ling sensed that everything was distorted, and there were layers of death aura. This was a fake world. An expert had used the power of a great divine ability to seal the world in front of him. The most terrifying thing was that Lin Ling discovered that a gray wave of death was spreading in front of him like a tide. Wherever it passed, all the mountains and rivers trembled slightly. It seemed that there was no change on the surface, but in fact, it had completely disappeared. That feeling was as if he had entered the underworld. What a powerful technique! Lin Ling stared at a stalk of grass under his feet, and discovered that it was filled with death aura. It was the netherworld grass. This meant that the gods of the underworld had come. Lien Latian, you have angered me time and time again, and challenged my bottom line. I will remember this grudge. Gritting his teeth, Lin Ling said calmly to Lien Latian behind him. Naturally, he could guess that all of this was because of Lien Latian. He at this point, it's either you die or I die. What's the use of saying all this nonsense? Lien Latian smiled ferociously. Since he had already shed all pretenses, there was no need to pretend anymore. Do you think you can escape just by capturing me? What a joke. You don't even know that I'm with the underworld god. He knows my whereabouts very well. Lien Latian continued. Now the underworld is my backer. You want to go against the underworld alone? You're dreaming. Moreover, the underworld god has already promised me that if you die, the power of your worlds will belong to me. Ha ha ha, Lin Ling. Oh Lin Ling. I'm looking forward to seeing you, the host of the 8th world's will. How powerful are you? How far can you allow me to grow? In the future, I want to dominate the entire universe. Chapter 48-47. Hearing Lin Ling's words, Latian sneered. Naturally, he did not believe Lin Ling's words. He said indifferently, you'd better think about how to deal with the problem in front of you. All right. Lin Ling ignored him and stared ahead. Now he had already been through a few waves of pursuers. This wave was probably the most difficult one, because this wave came at the right time. It appeared when Lin Ling was at his weakest. Underworld Bloodsea. Yes. Suddenly, on the mountain peak in front of him, gods in gray armor appeared. They opened their hands and summoned the powerful Underworld Bloodsea, which surged toward Lin Ling. The Underworld Bloodsea was a terrifying sea that washed away the memories, strength, and origin of those who entered the underworld. Any god who entered the Blood Sea would be washed away and turned into a blank reincarnation. Of course, the Underworld Blood Sea was only powerful in the underworld. But now, the gods of the underworld had moved a part of the underworld here, allowing the Blood Sea to descend. Woo woo woo. Another song entered Lin Ling's ears, making him feel dazed. It was as if he had heard the song of life. On the surging Blood Sea, Lin Ling saw an ancient sailboat moving forward. There was only one fisherman on the sailboat. He was topless and wore a straw hat. He stood on the bow of the boat and looked into the distance. Come, 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 cross the other shore with me. From now on, you will live forever and be free from the suffering of this world. The fisherman's voice was old, like a guiding light. After the fisherman's song, endless illusions appeared, as if saying that money, fame, beauty, and strength were all for nothing. Lin Ling's eyes were blank, but at this time, a clear current flowed into his mind, causing Lin Ling to instantly wake up. He found that the clear current came from the universe's three extremes break. When he took a closer look, he found that the so-called fisherman was actually a skeleton. This skeleton drove the tattered boat and rolled in the blood sea. It was incomparably terrifying. This underworld blood sea is too strong. A thought appeared in Lin Ling's mind. He did not stay any longer and fled in another direction. When the netherworld gate opens, everything in the world will submit. However, seeing that Lin Ling was about to leave, the underworld deities on the surrounding mountain peaks formed complicated seals. At the same time, numerous bronze gates appeared in all directions, sealing the various great universes. Bang, bang, bang. The gigantic bronze gate was like the great laws of the universe. When it suppressed the sky, a terrifying power surged into the earth, annihilating everything. Although this was the Tao realm, it was clear that the Tao realm's netherworld laws were the same as the primal chaos realm and the void of the 9 prefectures. After the gods here died, they would enter the netherworld and disappear forever. After a total of 18 netherworld gates appeared, the color of the entire world became even darker. At the same time, a strange feeling enveloped Lin Ling's entire body. He discovered that he had been sealed, and he couldn't leave the netherworld. And at this time, the terrifying sea of blood from the netherworld surged over, sealing off any direction that Lin Ling could escape in, causing Lin Ling to have nowhere to hide. Lin Ling, your life is up. Quickly return to the netherworld. Moreover, the King Yanluo from the netherworld gate also appeared from the netherworld gate. The book of life and death appeared in his hands as he read Lin Ling's name. He wanted to ban Lin Ling. My life is in my hands, Lin Ling. Since when is it your turn to talk nonsense? Lin Ling looked up and sneered. Lin Ling, your life is up. Quickly return to the netherworld. However, the King Yanluo from the netherworld gate had a cold expression. His eyes were filled with disdain, and he didn't care about Lin Ling's words at all. Lin Ling looked around, trying to find a way to escape. However, the netherworld gate was too strong, and he had used up all his trump cards. He couldn't block it with just his innate talent. Splash, splash, splash. In the end, Lin Ling was submerged in the sea of blood. He tumbled up and down, and a large number of skeletal arms appeared, pulling Lin Ling down into the sea of blood. Get out of my way. Lin Ling unleashed his strength and continued to blow up these skeletons. Rumble. A large number of skeletons exploded, but there were too many skeletons around. In the end, the sea of blood stopped flowing and began to retreat, leaving behind an endless number of skeletons. This was a sea of skeletons. Lin Ling's entire body was grabbed by a large number of skeletal arms and sank down. Looking from afar, this scene was incomparably terrifying. How pitiful. In the distance, even Lution was gloating over the misfortune of the other party. The eyes of the King Yanluo from the netherworld gate flashed as he sneered. Lin Ling was very famous in the netherworld. He wasn't afraid of the god of the underworld and challenged the great laws of the netherworld. The netherworld had long wanted to bring him to justice. However, Lin Ling's luck was good, and he had repeatedly escaped the pursuit of the netherworld. This time, Lin Ling couldn't escape. As long as he entered the netherworld gate, everything would be decided by the netherworld gate. No matter how powerful Lin Ling was, he would become a cripple. You want to kill me? Dream on. Being pulled by countless skeletons, Lin Ling also roared as he activated all the divine power in his body and blasted it towards himself. And this method was suicide. Hold him back. Seeing this scene, the various King Yanluo roared and struck out with the laws of the netherworld, causing the sea of skeletons to rise into a monstrous wave and drown Lin Ling's head. You want to commit suicide? Seeing Lin Ling being taken away by the sea of skeletons, the King Yanluo sneered. Suicide, although it was also entering the netherworld. Because Lin Ling was a god, it might be difficult for him to reincarnate and directly disappear in the universe. Moreover, even if he could reincarnate, Lin Ling would only be reincarnated into the path of the beast and suffer tribulation after tribulation. However, the purpose of the Netherworld Gate was to keep Lin Ling alive and imprisoned in the Netherworld Gate forever. How could they let Lin Ling die so easily? And now, Lin Ling was drowned by the sea of skeletons, which meant that Lin Ling had been completely brought into the Netherworld Gate. Even the ancient gods could not resist the Netherworld Gate. Go back. Then, the King Yinluo said indifferently, closed the gate of the Netherworld Gate, and disappeared without a trace. It's finally settled. The gods of the Netherworld standing on top of the mountain laughed excitedly. They formed complicated seals, and withdrew the sea of blood from the Netherworld Gate. Rumble! A huge black hole appeared, and the billowing sea of blood flowed in reverse and finally disappeared. Unfortunately, no one saw that when the sea of blood flowed in reverse, a five-colored light also quietly appeared and floated into the sky with a figure. And that figure was Lin Ling. Lin Ling still had one chance to be protected by the Dao realm. He had used it in the end and escaped from the Dao realm. This was something that no one knew. Lin Ling is finally dead. At this moment, even Letian let out a light breath and took a step forward, flying toward the gods of the Netherworld Gate. Lin Ling is a great enemy of the Netherworld Gate. The god of the Netherworld has wanted to capture him for a long time, and now, his wish has finally come true. We have also made a great contribution. Even Letian, you have also made a great contribution. The gods of the Netherworld Gate looked at even Letian and said, and they were all extremely happy. Ha ha ha, we are really lucky. When the gods of the audience said this, even Letian was even happier. Then, he suddenly thought of something and asked curiously, did you sense the power of Lin Ling's world will? Chapter 48-49. On the vast land, a dozen figures were flying into the distance. They were none other than Lien Letian and his companions. They were talking and laughing, as though they were about to embark on a grand plan. Behind them, a figure was quietly following them. It was as though he had disappeared into the universe, making it difficult for anyone to detect him. 19 people plus Lien Letian, that's a total of 20 people. This person was Lin Ling. He discovered that among the 19 people in front of him, 12 were late-stage high gods while the rest were mid-stage high gods. The opponents were very strong. If he were to fight them head-on, Lin Ling would be at a disadvantage. However, Lin Ling could defeat them one by one. Moreover, he discovered that his celestial Dao throne was in Lien Lishan's possession. This made Lin Ling somewhat relieved. If the celestial Dao throne was in the hands of those late-stage high gods, it would be very difficult for him to snatch it back. I just need to kill a few of them and rob Lien Letian. Then I can leave. Lin Ling thought to himself. He remained motionless and quietly followed them. At this moment, Lien Letian and his companions were still talking and laughing, as though they had made a great contribution. However, as they walked, Lien Letian suddenly frowned and said, logically speaking, since Lin Ling has been taken away by the underworld, the opportunity he left in my soul should have disappeared. But why can I still feel it? Bone King Realm Sealer, has King Yama of the underworld replied? One of the late-stage high gods looked at Lien Letian and said with a smile, don't worry, the underworld's blood sea has never failed. The opportunity in your soul has not disappeared. As it is the energy of the soul dissipates slowly. In a few hours, you will not be able to feel it anymore. This man was tall and wore a black robe. He looked like a pope. Bone King Realm Sealer is right. Lien Letian could not help but nod upon hearing the black-robed man's words. Oh no! However, before they could be happy for too long, the Bone King Realm Sealer let out a loud roar. He looked extremely anxious. What's wrong? Lien Letian frowned instantly. Lin Ling has escaped. The Bone King Realm Sealer looked at everyone, and finally said word by word. Escaped. Hearing this, Everyone's expression changed greatly. How could this be possible? One had to know that that was the attack of the 18 kings of hell. And there was also the blood sea of the underworld. How could Lin Ling escape? I'm guessing that Lin Ling was never caught from the very beginning. Bone King Sealer's eyes were gloomy as he pondered. No wonder the opportunity he left in my soul still hasn't dissipated. It turns out that he really didn't die. What should we do now? Even Lation knew that things were getting troublesome. He looked at the gods of the underworld and said, Chapter 48:51. Silver light enveloped him, as if the most ancient underworld passageway had been opened. Lin Ling's eyes stared at the underworld passageway that had suddenly opened. He sensed a vast ocean-like force attacking him, wanting to pull him into the silver door. At this moment, he had a feeling that he was as insignificant as an ant, unable to escape the power of the universe's great laws. Lin Ling's heart was shaken. However, his eyes instantly focused. The underworld's great laws of the universe wanted to subdue him, but as the master of Lin Ling's universe, why would he fear the universe's great laws? Even if he knew he was no match for them, his heart still yearned for them. What's more, he was carrying the heavenly Tao's wanted order today. Millions of gods wanted to kill him. If he were to admit defeat and fear, then it would be difficult for him to move forward in the future. He wanted to fight. Lin Ling's eyes were burning, incomparably resolute. The sword in his hand was mixed with the terrifying power of the eternal world of slaughter. It was constantly tumbling, as if millions of slaughter demons were attacking at the same time. This was the universe of slaughter, more powerful than any slaughter. It was the killing intent accumulated from killing countless people. The strength of this killing intent had even reached the stage where things would move in the opposite direction when they reached an extreme. It was more like endless vitality. After all, the other side of slaughter was the creation of life. Of course, compared to the ultimate massacre, Lin Ling was still slightly weaker. The true ultimate massacre was the massacre of the great cosmos. Moreover, Lin Ling's slaughter came from his 8th dantian, and was not personally comprehended by him. Therefore, in terms of foundation, he was ultimately weaker. Universe's 3 extremes: destruction, demons subduing destruction. Lin Ling let out another low roar. His surging soul power turned into an ocean, forming a great universe that sealed everything. A destructive soul force spread out. On the entire earth, all the gods were affected. Their souls trembled, but they could not sense any killing intent. As a result of their souls being affected, it caused the difficulty of summoning the underworld's blood sea to increase again. Lin Ling's 2 great killing moves were executed at the same time. The power was undoubtedly terrifying and shocking. Looking from the ground, the white snow had already melted, revealing a pitch-black continent. Everyone looked up and saw waves of cosmic rays pressing down like a cage. And in the middle of these rays, a sword was even more dazzling. This was also the first time Lin Ling had used Panga's strike. Universe's 3 extremes break, an eternal killing world at the same time. Lin Ling himself didn't know how powerful it was. Is this kid truly a god? Bone King Sealer raised his head and stared at the sky. His pupils were trembling and flickering. All of a sudden, his entire body exploded, turning into bones that coiled and spiraled, gradually turning into a huge bone saber. This blade was extremely extraordinary. It was formed from the bones of countless deities, and it was enormous. It was thousands of miles long, and as it hung in the air, it released a terrifying aura from the underworld. His blade slashed towards the heavens, colliding with Lin Ling's sword of slaughter. Boom! Before the 2 terrifying attacks collided, the surrounding area was completely destroyed. Lien Letian was too close to Bone King Sealer. He was blown away by the strong wind and buried in the ground. However, he quickly rushed out and stared at the sky with the most terrifying expression in his life. Too strong. Lin Ling's strength was simply beyond his imagination. This blade of mine, High God Divine Embryo. Bone King Sealer's voice exploded. Rumble. The saber and sword began to collide violently, exploding with deafening sounds. But what was surprising was that the collision of the saber and sword was extremely slow. It was as if two old men were fighting a slow tug-of-war. But in everyone's eyes, this wasn't a tug-of-war, but an illusion formed because the two attacks had gathered too much power. If one was in the middle of this collision, they would realize that the speed of the collision wasn't slow, but faster than one could imagine. Saber and sword, cosmic rays, and the silver door of the underworld. At this moment, it attracted the attention of countless people. The gods from the underworld were shocked. Only after witnessing it with their own eyes did they realize how terrifying Lin Ling's methods were. Most importantly, it wasn't just one method, but several methods. Not good. After the two forces collided for a long time, Bone King Sealer let out a low roar. His voice was filled with anger and unwillingness. This was because he realized that Lin Ling's strength had too many negative effects. For example, the universe of slaughter had weakened his strength. The cosmic rays had caused his soul to continue to tremble. And that sword that could split the heavens and earth made him feel like he was facing the most ancient god, opening the universe. In fact, Bone King Sealer also had a power that affected Lin Ling. However, Bone King Sealer felt that compared to his influence, Lin Ling's was weaker. For some reason, Lin Ling's foundation was incomparably solid. The negative effects on both sides were minimized. Is there a loophole? Be defeated. At this moment, Lin Ling's eyes were red. It was as if he was fighting against an incomparably terrifying storm. He knew very well that although he seemed to be able to fight Bone King Sealer, he was relying on his killer moves. Without these killer moves, Lin Ling would not be able to withstand Bone King Sealer's full-powered attack. This also meant that Lin Ling was fighting with his back against the wall. If all his killer moves could not defeat Bone King Sealer, Lin Ling would definitely die. Fortunately, the combination of several major moves was indeed terrifying. Bone King Sealer was injured and began to retreat. Rumble. Cracks appeared on the bone saber that he had transformed into, and it finally exploded. The silver light in the sky, which represented the oldest gate to the underworld, was slowly closing. Humph! Bone King Sealer grunted and retreated. Suddenly, a huge millstone appeared behind him, and sucked all the cosmic rays into the millstone. Lin Ling's earth-shattering sword slash was instantly blocked by the millstone. This millstone seemed to be used to grind people to death. It was extremely powerful. It was probably passed down by the god of the underworld. After Bone King Sealer blocked Lin Ling's killer move, he stared at Lin Ling without saying a word. However, Lin Ling noticed that Bone King Sealer was injured and did not dare to act rashly. He secretly felt lucky. Several killer moves erupted at the same time, and finally defeated Bone King Sealer. Late-stage High God was indeed amazing. Panga strike absolute soul shock. Without waiting for Bone King Sealer to react, Lin Ling moved at full speed. It was as if he had pierced through the void, and instantly appeared behind Bone King Sealer. Then, he grabbed Lien Letian and flew away. Lien Letian was still shocked by Lin Ling's thunderous moves. By the time he reacted, he had already been kidnapped. Even his voice was only halfway out. Lin Ling. As for Bone King Sealer, he stood in the same place and did not move. Only a low voice came out of his throat. My lord. At this moment, the other underworld gods stopped summoning the Blood Sea and flew toward Bone King Sealer, wanting to ask him how he was doing. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.